But just he wants to charge.
I feel like.
All rise for the jury.
We are back on the record on Mark Jensen, 2002 CF 314. We are starting the afternoon calendar today and the cross-examination of Jason Ruff. And it's my understanding, Ms. Renner, you're doing the cross, correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Anytime you're ready.
All right. So, Mr. Ruff, I want to talk a little bit first about computers from 1998.
All right, sounds good.
So, these computers back in 1998, if they had internet access, it was a dial-up modem, correct?
That is correct.
And so the dial-up modem, you had said, made a funny sound when you logged it in,
Yes.
and it's kind of that quintessential, really obnoxious sound.
Very obnoxious, yes.
Okay. And a dial-up modem actually plugged into a phone line.
That is correct.
So whereas today we tend to have cable lines or DSL lines or something like that that comes to our computer,
Correct, yes.
this actually went directly to the same phone jack as your telephone.
Yes.
And that means that when you are working on the internet or looking at stuff on the internet, you couldn't make a phone call.
That is correct.
And anyone who called you would get a busy signal
Correct.
because there was no access if you were on the internet.
That is true, yes.
All right. Now, dial-up also had slower load times than we have today.
Yes, it did.
In fact, if you were downloading a movie back then, it would take all day.
If that, maybe longer.
Right. And whereas today we have Netflix where we can watch it directly from the internet.
Correct.
And as we said yesterday, Netflix used to actually send out discs in the mail as opposed to actually being able to stream from an app on your computer.
That is correct, yes.
Now, I have a question about hard drives and whether they can be broken by a magnet.
It's always possible. It's be hard to do that. You need a very strong magnet.
Right. It requires a magnet that can create like 450 pounds of force.
Something like that, yeah.
And a magnet, even a big magnet that can pinch your fingers has about 7 pounds of force.
I would have to go with you on that. I'm not sure.
Right. So you actually would need something called a neodymium magnet.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
And even those magnets might not be strong enough. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah.
So this isn't something you could do with a magnet off of your refrigerator.
Very, very unlikely, yes.
So the computer at the Jensen's home had one user on it,
Yes,
and that was the buddy user.
that is correct.
So anyone in the home that would log in would be using that buddy user.
Anybody using the computer would be under the user buddy.
And there was no passwords set up.
No.
And let's talk a little bit about passwords.
Okay.
So today, passwords
Circle
are a
of
big
doom, man.
right?
Yeah, they are, because I can never remember my own password.
Is complex enough that nobody would be able
Stupid
to guess
password
it.
complexity.
Yes, correct.
And we always tell people, don't write down your passwords and leave it next to your computer.
That is correct.
I give them all to my sister.
And then
She's got all my
most
passwords.
websites or email servers, for example, will have requirements of your password these days.
Yes.
which is ridiculous.
Like you
It's
have
my
to have
password.
at least one capital letter and
Ugh.
one number, one special symbol, something like that.
Yes, yes.
That wasn't the case in 1998, was it?
No.
This awareness of
Can you turn on the computer?
keeping passwords secret wasn't
Password
a thing
accepted.
back then.
That is correct. Yeah, it was not.
Most people actually kept a list of their passwords right next to their computer.
I that I wouldn't know, but yeah,
Well-
I'm assuming people would write it down. Yeah.
Well, you were in elementary school.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
said.
yeah.
Now, when we're trying to figure out who was looking at a specific web page or something on a computer, one of the easiest ways to do that, obviously, would be if they had separate logins on the computer.
Absolutely.
And otherwise, we can look for like social media
Yeah. Yes.
or some other identifying thing.
Correct.
Let's say back in 1998, we didn't have as much social media, did we?
Yes. There wasn't as much social
We
media.
did,
Yeah,
but
no
it was called
Facebook,
socializing,
no
where you went outside
Instagram.
and talked to people.
No Snapchat.
Seemed to work pretty well.
We did have MySpace.
I do remember my.
What up, Tom? My
Did you have a
dude.
MySpace?
I did for a short amount of time.
But nothing on your examination of the Jensen computer showed any social media.
No social media that I could see.
Now, when you're getting evidence from a computer, you write block that.
Correct.
And write blocking basically makes it so that you can tweak the computer without it actually changing the original hard drive.
For the most part, yeah. So right blocking, essentially, it'd be sort of like the digital equivalent to putting like gloves on your hands in a crime scene.
Okay. So that's really important.
Yes, it's important.
And I think on direct, you said that turning on a computer without write blocking is a huge no-no.
Yes.
And all the computer analyst staff knows you never turn on a computer without write blocking.
That is correct.
And in fact, there's trainings given to law enforcement so that they don't turn on the computer without write blocking.
Correct.
And in fact, there's only one very limited exception to that rule, isn't there?
Yes, usually. Yes.
When you're
And
looking
that
up
rule
penises.
is that we only turn it on if we believe there's going to be evidence where we could save a living person who is in danger.
Correct.
Other than that, you don't do it.
No,
I've
you
never
should
heard of right blocking before.
And that's because it's possible
I feel
to
like I missed the
lose
boat on that
evidence.
one.
potentially. The biggest fear with that is timestamp changes, specifically in system files. But
Yep. So that's what we're talking about, the last written dates.
yes,
And the last access dates can also be changed.
they would be changed on those files that were accessed. Yes.
Right. So then you wouldn't be able to tell when a person on that computer actually last accessed a program.
For the most part, yes, correct.
And you also can end up overwriting data that's in the unallocated space.
That is correct. If you're recreating things or things like that, you would overwrite an unallocated space.
Right. So even on startup, there's files that are created.
Correct.
And when those files are created, I believe there's 4 of them. Is that right?
Yes.
And I believe those are the system.dat, right?
Yes.
And then there is a user.dat,
Yes.
win.ini,
Yes.
and then system.ini.
Yes.
And these all end up being saved into a cabinet file.
Yes.
Now, this is actually a
So nice.
larger cabinet
What's
file
up?
because system.dat and user.dat are pretty big files, aren't they?
Oh, what's up, Cupid?
Yes.
Now,
Cereal
you're
box.
aware that this computer was
98.
started on December 17th,
I am aware. Yes.
and it was started without write blocking.
Correct.
And So when they started it up, we created those 4 files in that cabinet file.
Yes, you created an updated version of those files from the last, yes,
And there's also Quicken backups that happened on December 17th, right?
correct.
And did you actually see those Quicken backup files?
I did not know.
Well, you're aware that you're not the first analysis or analyst to look at this computer,
Yes,
at any of these computers that we're talking about today.
correct.
In fact, there was at least 2 prior analysts.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Martin Koch
Yep,
and a
Speaking of Coke, I'm guessing that
Mitchell,
Mark Jensen
right?
was
Yes.
no stranger to the old
Now, when you did
Boo
your
Boo from the land down
analysis of
under.
this computer, did you
The,
look at what they did?
the
in
wacky
this matter?
cereal.
I
the,
read over their testimony and saw some of their
the fruity Boo Boo
reports and
pebbles.
everything
you
like
put 'em?
that. I
I
didn't
know what I'm saying. Cocaine is what I'm
go
going
through
with.
absolutely
Okay.
everything that they did, though.
So you are aware that so you read Martin Koch's testimony?
Yes, yes.
All of it?
If I recall correctly, yes, I read all of it.
So you're aware that he did find the Quicken files for the home account, right?
Correct, yes.
And in fact, he prepared a log or printed out a log of that account.
I believe so, yes.
I'm going to show you now Exhibit D65.
Okay.
65 is the register.
Thank you.
Do you recognize what this is?
I actually do not, to be honest.
Okay. What does it look like?
It looks like some sort of balance sheet.
For a checking account, right?
Correct.
And you recall in Martin Koch's testimony in 2008 that he indicated that he was able to access the 3 different accounts from Quicken.
Correct, yes.
And the first was the Jensen account.
I'd have to go off of recollection at that, yeah.
But that was there was an investment account under Jensen.
That's what I heard, yes.
And then there was an investment account under Sorensen.
Yes.
And then there was a checking balance account that was called Home.
Yes.
And does that appear to be an investment account?
No, it does not.
It's a checking balance sheet.
Yes, looks like a personal checking.
So that would be the home account?
I would have to take your word for it that it's the home account, but yes.
I'm now showing you
Thank
Exhibit
you.
D66. Do you know what D66 is?
So I haven't seen this, but I remember it from the testimony.
What is that?
This appears to be the Quicken backup files or the Quicken files.
And it shows that there was backups done on each of the Quicken accounts, right?
Correct.
And the home account, there's a number of backups that were completed.
Yes.
And that includes as late as November 30th in the afternoon.
Yes.
Are you aware that that was a weekday?
Yes.
And then there was November 28th at 3:42 p.m.
Yes.
And that's also a weekday.
Correct.
We've got November 11th at 2:52 p.m.
Hold on, let me look.
Having trouble finding that one?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Can you find the October 19th at 10:52 a.m.?
Did you say October what?
19th?
19th? Am I looking at this wrong? I don't see the October
Okay.
19th on here.
But it's fair to say that there were backups
There were
of the Quicken
backups.
account for home happening,
Correct.
and they were happening on weekdays during the day?
Correct.
Additionally, there's backups for the Sorensen files that happened on weekdays as well.
Correct. Yes.
And
that's what
during
it
those
appears.
magic business hours that we talked about yesterday between 8 and 5?
Correct.
And you don't have to be on the internet to use Quicken.
No, you do not.
In fact, the Quicken program runs perfectly fine without internet.
It does.
And when you are leaving Quicken, it gives you the option of whether or not to back up, right?
I'm not 100% sure on that.
Would that make sense?
That would make sense. Yes, it would make sense.
Fair to say you're not an expert in Quicken,
That is fair to say. Yeah.
especially Quicken 98?
Yes. Yes. I tried to do my research on it. There's not a whole lot there from 98.
Now, on that last backup sheet, you can see that there was backups done on December 17th, right?
Correct.
So on December 17th, someone went into Quicken
Correct.
and ended up backing up all 3 of those accounts.
That is, yes, that's what it shows.
And so when you do a backup like that, that's more data that is being saved onto the allocated space.
Correct.
Now, when you save something into allocated space, that can push other items out of unallocated space, right?
Well, overwrite. Yes. Yeah.
Overwrite?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not really a pushing, it's more of a writing over it.
Yes.
And the more things that you do on the computer when you have it started up, the more data that could be overwritten.
That is correct. That's
So in this case, turning on that computer on December 17th made a couple of problems in your analysis. Is that true?
it did cause some issues. Yes.
The first is what we're just talking about here is when they created files, they actually overwrote potentially some things that were in the unallocated space.
Yes. Potentially overwrote or partially overwrote.
And those are things that unfortunately we can just never get back.
That's correct. Yes.
They're gone.
Correct.
They're gone.
And additionally,
Like, gone.
we talked a little bit about this, but I want to talk a little further about it. This 20-day rule.
Yes.
Yes, they
What
are,
is the
Diana.
20-day rule?
So the 20-day rule,
Like a 5-second
especially
rule for
in some of the older
smut.
computers with internet history files and things like that, those system files will automatically start overwriting the older files after 20 days, just as a means to basically maximize the space that you have on your computer.
So when you turn something on December 17th, there's the potential for overwriting anything before the 29th of September.
There is a chance, although
November,
that,
sorry,
yeah,
November.
yeah, no, I yeah, what you mean. There is a chance, but the likelihood, because it would go into the unallocated space when it's overwritten, it's not double overwriting itself. So it would just be moved into that unallocated
Double
space.
overriding. Huh?
Right, and then
20 days.
anything that you did on the computer has the potential to overwrite it.
Potentially the older stuff. So for example, if you're going into a certain file on that day, updating it, it would update the older stuff related to that file folder.
Date.
And unfortunately, because it's just gone, you can't even tell us what that would have been.
For the most part, no. There's such things as there's something called slack space, which is also a type of
There's
unallocated
always
space
something else.
because of
isn't
how a
there?
hard drive is made up. It's usually made up in clusters of amounts of data.
Mark Jensen has an
Sometimes
entire
files do not
file
fill up those
dedicated
entire
to
clusters.
hard drives,
Those are
if you
space
will.
at the end of the files that is open that you can get, but for the most part, you can't
Had to happen.
recreate everything.
So if we thought about the unallocated space like a bunch of blocks,
Yes,
then if I delete a file and it doesn't fill up in a block entirely, the next thing I delete could potentially take up part of that block as well as part of another block too.
it'd be somewhat more the other way around. It would be, so data is stored in those blocks. When you delete it, those blocks remain the
Oh,
same.
the
And then if
blocks.
you start writing over it, then it starts filling up that block space.
All right, so I had it backwards.
Yes, yeah.
Get it right, man.
Basic
Yes,
idea.
yes, I got, yeah.
And so if the unallocated space gets rid of one cube, there could be potentially full files that are gone, but some are partially still there.
It's possible, but those files would have had to already be deleted.
Okay. And I'm just talking about unallocated space.
Yes. Yes, if there's a deleted file in unallocated space, yes.
So that's why you say that sometimes you can partially recover
Correct.
things from unallocated space.
Correct.
Now, a few times during your direct examination, you talked about from what I could recover.
Correct, yes.
And that's because you don't know if there's things that weren't recovered out of unallocated space as they were overwritten.
Yeah, there's no way for me to know what isn't there.
Now, going back to the Jensen computer, we talked about some ways to know who is sitting in front of a computer.
Correct.
Right. And because there was no social media or anything like that on this case, you actually have to look at the data and try to compare it to other things to determine if anyone was there and who it was.
Correct. So like you'd have to compare to times when somebody's home, types of sites that somebody's usually going to, things like that.
And so if there's two adults at home at the same time and the internet is accessed, you wouldn't be able to tell me who that is based on the computer itself.
Without knowing the background of the individual and the types of websites they're going to, I wouldn't be able to physically do that.
And making those type of connections, that's not your job. It's your job to analyze the computer and bring the data.
Yeah, my job is to show you what's on the computer and the nerdy side of things.
Give yourself more credit, bud. Not all nerds get to look at a litany of encyclopedia-style dick
an
pics.
internet history that you had created, right?
Yes.
Now, you'd said the computer was originally turned on in July,
Yes, yes.
but there's actually some things in that predate July of 1998, isn't there?
Correct.
How's that happen?
So a
How's
lot of
that
files
happen?
come to your computer. So
Tell me.
if you are ever like me and you like looking at some of that old stuff, you can see when certain files
we're
are
all like
originally
you.
created back in whatever warehouse they were created at, because everything has timestamps. Microsoft often, like all businesses, I'm not going to pick on Microsoft, reuses a lot of things. So you might have files that have dates from, in this case, dates from like 1999 or 1996, 1997 that are on your computer. You didn't have your computer in 1996, 1997, because those are system files that the company itself made, and those dates remain the same. So yes.
And that also can indicate that you're transferring something over from an old computer, right?
It is possible.
So things like there's, I believe, a baby shower that was
Yes.
predating.
I recall.
Did you look at that file?
I believe I looked at if I'm thinking of the correct one, yes, I believe I looked at it.
Better come correct. I wasn't threatening anybody, man. You got to be quiet because of me. I was just saying. Oops. I think I broke him. My bad. What are you going to do? You know what I mean?
Okay. You need Jesus.
Directed at Mark. He needs Jesus, is what he needs in his life.
I'm going to show you Defense Exhibit 6.
This guy is probably just like, I'm so done with dick pics.
I do indeed.
What is it?
This is a baby shower invitation.
Penis one more time, I dare you.
And it was, I believe the program it was created on was Publisher.
And how do you know it was created on Publisher?
Because I recognize it, because I remember looking at this exact image.
What is Microsoft Publisher?
So Microsoft Publisher is to kind of simplify it, it's essentially a means to design your own cards, and I guess you could design your own books and stuff like that, book covers.
Now on the back of that, there's some writing, right?
Yes.
And what does that indicate?
It indicates an invitation to Robin and Doug's baby shower by the Jensens.
Robin and Doug.
And who do you have to RSVP to for the party?
Yeah, who?
Julie.
Why didn't I get? Oh.
And then it gives a phone number?
Correct. Although it's a little bit
Sorry.
broken up on here, but yes, it gives a phone number.
You saw that on the
Yes,
computer
yeah.
screen. So even though my copy isn't perfect, it is a true and accurate representation of what you saw on the computer.
Correct.
I'll allow it. Sonia says it was the best program ever. I remember Paintbrush. I mean, I'm talking back in '93 when the internet
Now,
was being birthed.
there's a difference between an
My
internet
brother
and
was
an
doing
intranet.
pixelated
right?
Wolverine
That
drawings.
is correct. Yes.
So
You know what I'm talking
internet
about.
is when we're talking about the World Wide Web.
Internet, not
Yes. So if you
intranet.
think about networking and computers, the intranet is literally the network of networks.
To be clear, no one thinks about networking and computers.
Networks together.
Pinball.
And then an
that's right.
intranet is actually specific to a company or a website or something like that.
Yeah, so an intranet would be a network, like an individual network. At, like, for example, some of your jobs might have internal systems, internal files, and things like that that you have to log into, or there might be certain websites that you can only access at work. That would be an intranet.
And
Touche.
typically, to get into an intranet, you'll need a password.
Correct.
Did you see any indication on your analysis that there was a password needed to get into the intranet?
I only saw that the intranet was actually accessed. I didn't see specifically how it was accessed, whether it was logged in or it was just saved on the computer.
So you don't know if you had to put in a password or not.
I would only speculate.
Please don't do that.
Yes.
She said, please don't do that. Not on my watch. You don't speculate here. No speculations taking place.
But so once you're in an intranet, you have the ability to access just about everything on that network, right?
Just
Yeah, whatever security permissions that you have.
Now, in this case, there was logins to the Stifel intranet.
Stiffle. Stiffle.
And so anyone who gets into the intranet from the Jensen home computer could look at the information on there.
Yeah, as long as they had access to it, yes.
And when we're talking about that Stifel intranet, that also included the email server.
Correct.
I want to talk specifically about the
Objection to that
searches and or websites accessed from October 16th of 1998.
Okay.
So this early morning string of searches, there's a Yahoo search for drugs,
Yes.
then a Yahoo search for botulism.
Correct.
Objection. It's Yahoo.
Then we end up at a
Yahoo.
website defining botulism.
Correct.
Then we end up with this website on nitrate.
Correct.
And it that website on nitrate actually indicates that it shows up, botulism shows up naturally in food and drink.
I guess so. I don't fully recall what it said on those websites.
Well, it was talking about a meat cure, right?
I'm objecting. We're getting into the content of the website, which I thought the defense wanted an instruction against.
I thought we all agreed that any website we can't believe.
That is true, but I'd like to talk about what was displayed.
Well, we know it was in food and drink, so let's move on. Okay.
I don't think she appreciated
So
that.
then we had a search on botulism in low acid canned foods,
Correct.
again about food and drink.
Yes.
And we have an article on botulism,
Correct.
another search for botulism.
Correct.
Then we end up at this page called the recipe link.
If I recall, yes.
And that's a place where you could search for different recipes.
I believe so. Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not, but from what the website looked like, yeah.
You haven't used the recipe link yourself?
I don't even know if it's I don't know how many of those websites are even
Weren't you
around
an elementary
anymore.
school chef?
No. I did home.
One of them was
Anybody wants
howtokillyourwife.com, and we did look that up, and it was
Well, and then we end up with another search for botulism.
basically shove
And
them off
that
the cliff
lands us
is what
at
they said.
Page about flavored oils and their potential
Mm.
for botulism.
I believe I recall that, yes.
A
So then,
sensual
again,
massage.
we're talking about food and drink.
Possible, yeah. Like
Well-
in this case right now, while we're talking, yes.
Just what the page showed.
What the page showed, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, keep
Well,
on the
flavored
page.
oils are something you would.
Tell us.
I
Go
believe
ahead.
you would probably put in
What?
food. I don't know.
Do you recall on that
Okay,
page
buddy.
that there's actually a notation about the possibility of poisoning your friends by giving them flavored oils?
Based
i.e.
on
your
the
lover.
totality of the searches in that time frame, I could assume that yes, poisoning was in there somewhere.
And then we finally end up with the search for poisoning.
Correct.
And then after that, we don't have another access until that night.
Correct.
And it actually starts again at 11:57 p.m.,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And at 11:57 p.m., we end up with this first thing being an article about a guy who tried to pipe bomb his wife.
Yes.
He was not successful.
He was not. No.
Pipe
It
bomb
was
his
an
wife.
attempted pipe bombing of his estranged ex-wife.
Yes.
I'll tell you guys real quick. I'm over
And it was
talking.
an article talking
I
about
met an
his
old guy who
charges
did
and
like
the allegations.
hot water
And
heaters,
his
what he
sentencing,
focused on,
right?
and he
Yes,
showed a
it
woman
was like a
something once
sentencing
about how
article,
dangerous they can be if you
Right, and
plug
he
the
got
release
something like
valve.
50 years.
Apparently,
Yep.
long story short, she ended up
So then
murdering
we
her
moved
husband
on
by
to
blowing up
a
the hot
site
water
about
heater
mercury
in their
fulminate.
house, and it turned into like a
Yes.
hydrogen bomb.
But there's
Basically,
no search in
next time I
between
saw him,
that
he had
you
to
saw.
testify in the trial, and he was
None
like,
that I was able to recall.
"You're never gonna
no.
believe this." It's an old guy
And-
years ago. It was crazy. Anyway,
Then we have this going to pool fun,
Yes.
web
Uh,
TV.
and that
Robert
talks
coming
about
with
reversing
the,
the
old school,
polarity
man.
of a pool filter.
I believe that was in there. Yes.
You're a freak, Sonia.
Do you know that reversing the polarity on a pool filter is actually how you would dissolve scale from the electrodes in the pool filter?
I'm objecting. I would be-
That's
Why would he know that? Did you know? She just flexed
He's
on
not
him.
a pool expert.
Let me tell you about my pool knowledge.
idea.
Also, Sonia, do you remember when they used to sell edible underwear at 7-Eleven?
Just wanted to know if you knew.
They was like
I
wrapped up like a
understand.
rose. Anybody remember that one? Edible 7-Eleven
You
underwear.
can't guarantee that any of the information on that would actually be able to harm a person.
I would not. I mean, I know that website, and I know that it's not all accurate. Some of it is. I don't know.
Well, and then we end up with some nicotine searches.
Biscuits
Right?
and gravy
Correct.
apparently is the nominated
Then
best
there's
flavor
a look
for that
at
oil
these Stifle
and
branch
underwear.
listings.
Correct.
Now, there's an email between Mr.
Scratches.
Jensen and Ms. Labonte that was accessed.
Correct.
Now, that email was actually sent during the afternoon hours
Yes.
at like 3:25 in the afternoon,
Yes.
not when it was being accessed here.
Not when it was being read and recorded as being read. Correct.
Okay. And so then we have a listing of the Colorado Springs office,
Yes.
And about 1 a.m., we end up with the Stifel Find Names website.
Correct.
And I think it's fair to say that a search was done for the first name Kelly.
That I don't recall, honestly. I think I remember that was in there, yes, but I'd be.
Well, the next page that you saw was a bunch of Kellys.
Oh, yes. My apologies. Yes.
So whoever did this search must have been looking for a Kelly without a last name,
Correct.
because you ended up with a Kelly Labonte, a Kelly McDonald,
Yes.
a Kelly Snyder,
I believe. I don't remember.
and a
all
Kelly
the-
whose last name I'm not even going to try to pronounce.
Yeah, I believe.
So whoever did that search didn't put in a last name,
Correct.
because otherwise you would have been limited to whatever that last name.
That
is.
seems fair. Yeah.
And these searches on December 2nd and 3rd. Now there's this first search that we talked about is this search for paroxetine.
Yes.
And that happened at about 4:35 in the morning.
Correct.
Then there wasn't another web page or anything that you saw for about 3.5 hours.
Correct.
And that next search would have been at about 8:16 a.m.
That sounds right. Yes.
Now, these December 2nd ethylene glycol searches occur in that magic weekday business time of between 8 and 5, right?
Correct. They occur between that time period. Yes.
Right. And this is the first time that we see any site that actually gives descriptions of ethylene glycol.
I do not believe so. I believe ethylene glycol was searched earlier than that, but that I'd have to look at the actual record itself.
Which record would help you more, the PowerPoint or the list?
By the total list.
Clerk, could you turn this on, please? There we go. How would you like to do this, Mr.
So the easiest way probably would be if you do just like a Control F and then type in.
You want to say for the record what we're looking at? Because is it an exhibit that's been marked or is it the PowerPoint?
I think
This
this
is
is
from Exhibit 55.
Okay.
The Exhibit 55 includes the thumb drive. So it has this internet history that was testified to on direct as well as the
All right.
PowerPoint.
Thank you.
If you want to type in like Ethel or something like that, just so I can see which dates it was again.
Well, there was a notation of ethylene glycol on a search page from November 10th,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
But that was not what was being searched for at that point in time.
I don't believe so. No, I don't know.
It just showed up on the page.
It's on the page. Yes.
And that's actually the first time you see ethylene glycol was that November 10th page.
That sounds about right. Yes.
Then, do you recall seeing it again until December 2nd?
I am not aware. There's so many dates. I don't remember.
Look at the search results here for glycol. It's coming back to December, right?
Okay. Yes.
So fair to say that
Fair to say, yes.
well, yeah. And then we have the anatomy.atom.com.
Correct.
And that search started at about 11:45 in the morning.
Correct.
And that's again within that magical weekdays between 8 and 5 time, right?
That is between 8 and 5, yes.
Now, we don't actually have like a computer webcam that could show us who is sitting there,
No,
not on this computer.
No.
And we don't have like, in fact, when you were given the computer to work on, or when it was given to the crime lab, I should say,
yes.
was there a monitor included?
That I don't even know because I was working off of the forensic images.
Okay, so you never saw a keyboard
No,
or a mouse,
none of the peripherals. No.
and you're not aware of any testing done on those?
Nope.
All right. Now, we talked a little bit about November 10th, right?
Correct.
Now, on November 10th, there was an alt.suicide news group that was signed up for. Did you see that in your analysis?
I did see it, yes.
What's a news group?
So back in the day, this is probably even before, well, around the time, if people remember, like AIM or instant messaging and stuff like that, there were also things called bulletin board systems, which is, without going too deep into it, it's very similar to that. So they were essentially groups where people could talk about certain topics related to whatever, in addition to each other. So, yeah.
I think most people are familiar because of alt.scientology.
That I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
But these were basically a place where you could sign up and then be a part of these bulletin boards.
Yeah, so the bulletin board systems, you would generally have to connect through some sort of like IP protocols and things like that. So yes.
Now, also on November 10th, there was searches for suicide.
Correct.
In fact, there was a page accessed, included a search about physician-assisted suicide.
Yes.
There's a web page about Noel Early,
Yes.
and he, according to what you saw,
Yes.
was an advocate for physician-assisted suicide and euthanasia.
From what was portrayed on the webpage, yes.
We don't know if that's true or not.
Yes, correct.
Just like we don't know about the polarity of pools being true or not.
Correct.
Now, November 10th, like I said, was the first time that we saw any reference to ethylene glycol in the computer.
Yes.
Now, Ms. McNeil had you read one of the links on the toxicology website, right? Or the searches?
Yes. Well, she showed it to me and I said yes, yeah.
In fact, that was under the search for toxicology, right?
Correct.
And we can't say that anyone actually clicked on that link.
Clicked on the actual toxicology or the website that
The website that says ethylene glycol.
There was nothing saved that I could see, no.
Right. So, and the next page that you saw was about nicotine.
Correct.
Now, with all of these searches, there's nothing in the computer specifically that says this was searched by Mark Jensen or this was searched by Julie Jensen, correct?
I wouldn't be able to tell who was physically hands on the keyboard.
Right. And there's no way that the computer could tell you that based on what was available at 1998.
You just have to go off of internet history and who's looking at what.
No further questions.
Redirect?
Do you still have the paper exhibits in front of you?
Yes.
I'm just going to get the number.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
So looking at exhibit 67, is that the invitation?
Yes.
Do you have any idea who Doug or Robin are?
I have no idea who Doug and Robin are.
Do you have any idea whose friends they are?
I do not.
And when you looked at the program that would have been used to create that invitation, is what you see there on the page, is that essentially a template?
Yes, it's a template.
So nothing too creative happened, just someone typing into a template?
Yes.
And then looking at exhibit 66, these quicken access times,
Yes.
do you have any idea what was actually happening with the quicken program during those times?
I do not. It looks, yeah, I do not.
So you can't tell if something was being edited or added or anything like that?
No, they look like updates.
Okay, and so what do you mean by it looks like updates?
Just based on the how it's going, the last accessed, file created, and last written. It's basically happening in a matter of like 2 seconds in each item. So the update was created, for example, let's look at, I'll just pull up the first one. It says that it was created, this is November 30th, 98 at 2:29:36 seconds. And then it was last written 2:29:38 seconds. So that looks like it was just a file update.
And is that something that would happen automatically, or do you know about Quicken?
It could possibly happen automatically.
And so this exhibit here doesn't really tell you what activity is actually happening on Quicken.
No.
And there's some reference on this Quicken both to Jensen and to Sorensen, correct?
Correct.
And we saw on the screen the Sorensen account with all the stocks.
Correct.
And again, you wouldn't have any knowledge of who that actually is
I do not.
or why someone would be accessing that on the Jensen home computer.
No.
And then the last thing for this exhibit 66, for these times, do you know whether they would be the Pacific times or whether they would be the Central times?
I would have to know a little bit more about Quicken, just because it would be based off of if it's a web-based thing. So if the web had to be accessed, it would be in Pacific time.
So if these times are being pulled based upon the internet being accessed and what you explained to us about the computer being on Pacific time, then these are Pacific times.
Correct.
Versus 1998 Quicken, whether this was actually accessed through the internet.
Correct.
And did you try to find information about 1998 Quicken?
I did.
Was it pretty limited?
It was very limited, yes.
Okay, so that's just an unknown to you as you sit
To me,
here.
yes. Yeah.
Whether these times are accurate for Central time or not.
It would be, yeah, speculation.
Now, you described for us that based on what occurred on December 17th, that some files in the, I think, did you say the unallocated space would be overwritten?
Correct.
Okay, and why would that have occurred with the booting of the computer?
So the files that would have likely been overwritten, it would have been based on however large those system files were when they're overwritten. What would have been recreated are those system files, and their timestamps would have changed. Because if you remember yesterday, I kind of explained how computers are essentially giant filing systems, sort of like a card catalog or something like that. So it'd be sort of like, to give you an example, it'd be like, let's say you go to a library, you check out a book, the librarian marks when you check it out, you turn it back in, they mark when you check it back in. That would have been basically what was overwritten.
And is it fair to say that when a computer is normally being used and it's being turned off or turned back on, that's just happening all the time?
Yes.
So it's not something that was unique to December 17th of 1998. Throughout the use of this computer, if it's being turned off and turned back on, that same thing is happening.
Correct in that sense.
And just to be clear, when we went through this internet history, all of those dates and times, was that impacted at all by the computer being turned on December 17th?
Those dates and times, no.
So those are accurate.
Yes.
So if we were seeing those searches for ethylene glycol on the 2nd and the 3rd, that didn't just appear on those dates and times because of some change from December 17th, correct?
No.
And in fact, when we're talking about dates and times being changed due to the computer being booted on December 17th, we're actually talking about the date being changed to December 17th.
Correct. Yes.
And so because you have knowledge of what occurred on December 17th, you know to not attribute December 17th dates to any suspect.
That is correct.
Now, you were asked some questions about the search for botulism and the various things that were accessed, correct?
Yes.
And the search was just for the word botulism.
Correct.
Okay, so it wasn't more specific like botulism in cooking or how to avoid botulism when I can foods or whatever.
Yeah, it was simply botulism.
And that series of searches is the one that ended in the search for poisons, correct?
Correct.
Now, we went through in great detail the use of the computer and the dates and times in which it was being used over the months of use that we had, correct?
Yes.
And you showed on the screen, or we saw on the screen, those calendars of the dates and times.
Yes.
And almost never was the computer being accessed from the 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. times in terms of the internet.
That is correct.
And then we talked about December. We talked about December 2nd and December 3rd.
Correct.
Those dates and those times are pretty unique in the use of the computer internet, correct?
Correct.
And so when we're talking about the regular use of this computer over the course of months, when a person who has a 9-to-5 type job would be at their job, the internet wasn't being used.
Objection misstates the evidence.
Overrule, go ahead, answer the question.
It seems that way, yes.
And in fact, when we did see specific times during those months, during the day when there was internet activity, I showed you on the internet history what was happening, correct?
Correct.
And it didn't appear to be browsing sessions.
Correct.
So that would make December 2nd and December 3rd different in terms of the usage of the internet during those daytimes.
That is correct.
Now, you were asked some questions about November 10th, and the search is done beginning with suicide
Yes.
and then physician-assisted suicide.
Correct.
And then among the string of searches happening on that day, one of them was nicotine.
Yes.
Now, clearly, in terms of who is actually sitting at this computer when this activity is occurring, there's really no way to know that.
Correct.
And even in modern times, you still don't have a camera recording someone sitting in front of a computer when you analyze current computers today, right?
For the most part, yes.
Computers hopefully are not recording us as we're sitting in front of them, right?
Correct. Unless somebody's recording themselves.
So even today, when you're doing an investigation, if there is a question in terms of who was at the computer and who was using it, you have to look for some type of context clues.
Yes.
Now, for instance, it could be very easy where there's a login and a password.
Yes.
And so it makes it unlikely that it's anyone but the person who's logged in,
Yes.
but not impossible if their password is available or someone knows it.
Yes, that's correct.
But this computer was not that way because the username was Buddy and there was no password.
Yep.
And so when examining this computer to determine, well, who was using it, who was conducting these searches, you had to look for clues.
Yes.
So clues like that might align with the person's life and with their interests, right?
That is true. Yes.
So things like fishing,
Correct.
things like what to do in Chicago,
Correct.
and things like vacationing at Big Cedar.
Correct.
And so whether that means anything to you personally as the computer analyst, that's what you're looking for in terms of clues of who's accessing the computer.
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Recross?
Just a couple questions. And I apologize to get back into Quicken, but we're going to get back into Quicken. So the Quicken backup files, those are when someone like basically is saving the Quicken information.
I can only say what I know about backup files in general. I wouldn't be able to say specifically on Quicken backup files because backup files can vary from program to program.
Okay. So that's not a question you can answer.
No.
You just know that these files were created. At that
Yes,
point.
from this document, yes, there's.
And you know that whoever was
Yes.
doing the backup or whenever a backup is created, someone was using Quicken.
The Quicken program was on, yes.
And again, we don't know who that was by basically just looking at the computer.
Correct.
We've got to look at context clues.
Correct.
Now, Quicken, we know, at least we believe, you testified to already, it doesn't require the internet to work.
No.
So this is not a web-based program that would have problems with the times on there.
No, it shouldn't. Well, I don't know because the Quicken program itself can be opened up like most programs, but it did have a web-based portal on it. So like it had a stock ticker in there as well. So I don't know what accesses what specifically.
So you can't say that the dates and times on there are wrong.
I can't say they're right or wrong.
And you can't say that they're Pacific time.
I cannot.
Anything like that would just be a guess.
Exactly.
So what we have is those dates and times,
Just this document, yes.
nothing further.
You are excused. Thank you. The state's next witness.
So Judge, we have certified documents that we've agreed upon that show the dates of when divorce was filed by Julie Jensen. So I would just like to read that out loud to the jury at this time.
Is there an agreement from the defense as to that? Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. McNeil.
So this is exhibit number 61. And so exhibit 61 indicates that a petition for divorce was filed by Julie C. Jensen on June 24th of 1991.
Again, you can find all of this in the
regarding
file
her
that I
husband,
have
Mark
on
D.
my Facebook
Jensen.
page.
And then
Go check that out and click the link.
get the correct day.
You got 2 camera angles on me right now. That's just how we're going to
Then
operate for a minute.
on dated the 27th day of June 1991 and signed by both Julie Jensen and Mark D. Jensen was a stipulation to dismiss the divorce filing. And I think that filing date, if I can read it correctly, is July 15th of 1991, but it was signed by the parties on June 27th of 1991.
Right, that should be marked and made part of the record if it's a stipulation.
It is marked.
So
And what number is it?
that is 61.
Right, 61 is going to be received then.
And so, Judge, I hate to violate the rule, but we do have some afternoon video. These are short. These are very short.
I hope your definition of short is the same as mine.
Less than half an hour. How about that?
All right.
Okay.
Your Honor, before we go on break, I would move exhibits 66, 67, I believe 55 into evidence if that hasn't already been moved.
All right, those are received also.
And
Okay.
is that all the exhibits that I used from that one? Oh, also move 65.
I think they're still there.
They're up front.
They were all put on the desk, to the table.
We would also move Exhibit 14. That's the Joanne Klug written statement. We forgot to ask for that to be moved into evidence previously.
It's coming in.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I'm just standing before we do the video, so. All right, let's do the video and then we all take our break, okay? Exhibit is this, Ms. McNeil?
So the first one will be State's Exhibit 17.
Thank you.
Okay.
And what are we going to be watching, Ms. McNeil?
So this is State's Exhibit 17. This is Joan Scully. However, it doesn't want to show on the screen right now, so it is my screen. I just got to go to a setting.
Okay, I just realized it's because we didn't have the what a pain, man. Will this work? Can you hear me now? Hopefully you can hear me now. So yeah, you can hear anything. Okay, good. So what I was saying was that this is the prosecution's case right now. So they have their 84 witnesses, whatever to call. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mark is guilty. Then the defense will have a chance to call their witnesses and to show their evidence after the prosecution rests their case. So this is all prosecution right now.
State your
Then the defense
first
will
name
have a
and
chance to
last name
present
and
their
spell
case.
your
So
last
that's
name.
how this is going to work out
Scully,
moving forward. But
S-C-U-L-L-Y.
right now,
Miss Scully,
they
did
have a
you
chance to
know,
cross-examine
Mark
any of the
Jensen?
witnesses that are called by the prosecution. So defense has a chance
And did you, in
to
fact, work with him?
be involved with their witnesses.
Do you
how
recall
this
where
works
it
out.
was that you worked with Mark
But it's
Jensen?
prosecution's time right now to prove be on a shadow of doubt, which is why they're
And
going through the
At
exhaustive,
what time were you employed at
the point of
Robert
nauseum
Baird?
detail
With Mark
circulation
or-
of all these things. So that's what's happening right
Let's
now. I'm going
start
to shut
with
up and
when
listen
you
here.
were employed
So
there.
this
I
was
was
from the
employed
original
in
2010 trial. You can tell by all the on the background
how
there,
long did
all
you
of
work
the
there?
legal books. At one point, you could see that. Let me get in here.
At some point, did Mark Jensen join the office?
I think it was either 1992 or 93.
It's kind of blurry, but one of them had like case law. They had it all broken down, so it was pretty funny. That
And
they
how
had
long did
so many
Mr.
different things we
Jensen
could
work
see in there.
at Robert W. Baird?
Till 1998.
Oh, she's
Did he
sassy.
leave Robert W. Baird to go to Stiefel Nicholas and Racine?
Be real about it.
What was your job at Baird between 1992, 93 to 1998?
We opened the new branch in Kenosha, and I had worked in Racine, and I went with the manager at Baird to join Kenosha branch. My title was branch operations supervisor.
What were some of your responsibilities as branch operations supervisor?
It was mainly in the clerical end within.
Did you open all mail that came into Robert W. Baird?
I did, or one of the other assistants would.
Was it your primary responsibility?
Yes.
And why is it that you opened the mail that came into Robert W. Baird?
Right. Defense is
I think
their
I
job is to
might
poke
have
holes in
even
the story
started
or in the
earlier.
case.
I just did, there was a morning envelope that came from the home office, but our regular mail came at noon, so I would pick that up on my way back from lunch.
Do you know whether the brokers were permitted to open their own mail?
They just never did,
Okay.
no.
During the time that Mark Jensen worked at Robert W. Baird, did he ever indicate to you that he was receiving mail that contained sexually explicit photos?
No,
Did he ever indicate that he was receiving packages or envelopes on his car window in the parking lot that contained sexually explicit photos?
I don't think so, no.
Did he ever,
I don't think so, I don't really remember him ever.
did he ever indicate to you that he was being harassed in any way at the workplace?
No.
During the time that you would open mail addressed to Mark Jensen, well, did you open mail addressed to Mark Jensen?
I may have, I can't remember for sure.
And do you recall whether you opened any mail for Mark Jensen that contained any sexually explicit photographs
No.
or images?
No.
Back in 1990 or 1991, someone who had a Series 7 broker's license, what would their job function or job responsibilities include?
An assistant would be registered and she would be able to actually take orders from clients.
How would that person take orders? By what mechanism? In person, by phone?
It would probably be a phone call if the broker assistant was on another line, and then she could help the client.
Do you know at that time in 1990 or 91 whether orders were placed over the internet?
I don't think they were on the internet. They went through our system.
Your system, can you describe that system at that time?
I think we had regular stations for listed stocks would go to one station, and the over-the-counter would go to another station in Milwaukee, and then the station in
Apologies.
Milwaukee, and then
I pulled a Ghostbusters situation there and cross streams. Shouldn't have done that.
enter their own. So a ticket would come up and you'd fill in the.
And was this done by phone? Placing the orders was
No,
done by
over
phone?
the computer.
Okay, but back in 1990 or 1991, was it done?
It was done on one of our machines,
Not a computer?
like not like an internet.
Nothing further.
Mr. Albee?
When you say one of our machines, is it?
What's going on with your machines?
Is it a dedicated computer as opposed to like the internet?
It would be just to email back and not email. That's right. We'll send messages to the home office. We did money wires that way. We did, I think we had a log securities that came through and the orders were put through that way.
So some sort of pre-internet computer communication kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Your office, Ms. Scully, was at 5525 Green Bay Road?
Correct.
We had some information about a telephone call at the Jensen's house from a Tina Thomas whose address was 6015 55th Street. Would that have been near that address on Green Bay Road? 6015 55th Street in Kenosha?
We were right at the intersection of 56th, I believe. 50.
Now they're doing a rebroadcast of some old footage, so I think they're just having issues on their end.
Streets. There's that avenues that
And so that would that be pretty close to your office then? 6015 55th Street?
Oh yeah.
like it.
Yeah. Okay.
Who knows?
Let me ask if you've ever seen a particular postcard, and I'll just ask you to turn your attention to the screen behind you. Do you recall ever seeing this postcard? It's the last page of Defendant's Exhibit 20.
No.
That is the address,
That is our address.
and that postcard also was has a postmark on it, correct?
Mhm.
You have to say yes for the court report. Okay, so if that came into the office while you were there, you apparently didn't personally receive that, or you just don't recall it?
I don't recall that.
Okay. Did Mr. Jensen ever speak with?
Yeah, I apologize. It's giving issues over here. So
It's the prudent thing to do.
there we go. Sorry, I was trying to make sure we get the sound where it needs to be.
Postcard you're talking about, right? Okay. You want to mark it?
I will have it marked. I got a polling drive. Okay.
Better mark that thing.
Thank you. That video's done, right?
That video is done, so the state would move Exhibit 17,
It'll be received.
and then the next video is Exhibit 18.
All right. Do we have any exhibits that we're going to have to show when we do 18?
I don't think so.
All right. That's good news.
Judge, he has no desire to watch any videos at all.
And which witness is in Exhibit 18 now?
My guy wants
You want
nothing
the
to do with
Yeah, that
anything
would
that
help.
has anything to do with overuse of technologies. He's
So this
hated
is
the
number
videos for them.
57,
57,
Marion Passetti.
Marion Passetti for the record. Pacetti, Marion, normal spelling.
All right, and then if, I know your clerk is busy, we just have to switch it back.
That's gonna glitch for a
It'll be
second.
received. Thank you.
Stacy, what's happening? How you been? Marion Pachetti. Pachetti. You guys remember 48 hours?
Please raise your right hand.
What was that? Was that 48 hours? That
Please raise
name?
your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Say, I
I
bet.
do.
So what you say? Bet your ass. Bet your ass, I do.
Could you state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Marion Passetti, P-A-C-E-T-T-I.
Pacetti.
And Ms. Passetti, how are you employed? Or how are you employed?
You mean when I worked?
When you worked?
I was an RN.
Okay. And where did you live? Where do you live?
Well,
I-
is that relevant?
Okay. Where did you live in 1998?
9039 Lakeshore Drive.
And how long had you lived there
At the time
at
of,
the time?
let's see, 83. We moved there in 83, and 98 would be what, 20, no, 83, 12 years?
Close enough. Did you come to know Mr. and Mrs. Jensen?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Did you come to know Mr. and Mrs. Jensen?
Yes,
And how did you meet Julie
Hmm.
Jensen?
I met her as a neighbor, but then they asked me to join the book club.
How close were your homes
The
to each
book
other?
club, huh?
Julie's house was across the street and 2 houses north of mine.
Okay. Did you have frequent contact with Mrs. Jensen?
In the summertime, I did, when she would be outside, not as much in the winter, but of course at book club,
In the summer of 1998, did you have contact with Mrs. Jensen?
yes.
And what kind of contact did you have?
Well, besides the book club, if I was going somewhere and she would be in the yard, I would stop and talk. And the same with, she was.
Now they're
going
doing
somewhere,
these
she would
recorded
sing.
testimonies because some of these people
How
have either
often
passed
would you say that
away
you saw her
or are not able
in the fall of 1998?
to be here.
Probably
Yes,
once a
Stacy,
week
I
or-
am
Or
in
so.
Bristol,
Not real
Wisconsin.
frequently in the fall.
And during this once a week that you would see her in the fall, would you speak to her also?
Oh, yes.
And how would you describe Mrs. Jensen's personality?
She was a very warm, caring person, outgoing, nice to be around. She was a very nice neighbor.
And did you observe her interactions with her children?
Whenever I saw her, she was an excellent mother. The children were everything to her.
Okay. Did you see Mrs. Jensen at the November book club?
Yes,
And do you recall Mrs. Jensen's physical appearance at the November book club?
She looked the same as she always did to me.
Okay. And did she behave as she always behaved?
Yes, she did.
And how did she behave at that book club?
Well, Julie was always an excellent hostess, and she's very warm. She greeted us. If I'm not mistaken, that night we had a buffet set up in her home, and she just was a very good hostess.
Did you speak with Mrs. Jensen during the week of her death?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall when that was?
I believe it was Monday before her death.
Okay. That would have been November 30th.
Yes, I know it was after Thanksgiving.
And how is it that did you speak to her in person or over the phone?
No, she called me.
And why did she call you?
In the spring of 1998, I had started a lot of plants in my basement from seeds and grew them under lights, and I gave a lot of the surplus.
Yeah, Diana,
to
thank you for
Julie.
those stars. I appreciate it.
And at the time, she was very interested in that, and so she wanted to know, when she called me, she wanted to know when I
Oh,
got the
technologies.
seeds, when I started them. And seeds are not available.
You guys can
that
hear me,
early,
correct?
So I told her that I bought them through a seed catalog. And she wanted to get a catalog, and I said, well, I would bring mine over when I got it. And they came out around Christmas time. And then she asked me about
you.
lights.
Thank you.
And about
Namaste. Namaste.
what I started the seeds in. It was just strictly a talk about gardening.
How long did you say
Holly,
the
welcome to the
conversation
party.
lasted?
Thank you, Kathy, Cupid. Appreciate it. Candace, appreciate you. Charlene, thank you so much.
Maybe 25 minutes.
And
It was
so,
quite long, really.
okay. And Mrs. Jensen, she was making plans for her garden.
Yes,
Do you recall the day that Mrs. Jensen died?
yes.
And did you have an opportunity to speak with Mr. Jensen that day?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell me what you saw and what happened?
I had been in Milwaukee and came home, and as I drove around the corner, there were all these emergency vehicles parked by their house and in the drive. And I went home, parked my car, and I walked back to the Ashley's driveway, which is across the street from the Jensen's home. And some of the other neighbors were there. And we were standing there wondering what had happened. Because of the two young boys, we thought perhaps something had happened to one of them. Then finally, Mark and his father walked across the street to where we were. And we said, well, what happened? And he said, Julie had died and that she had had a bad reaction to some medicine she had taken. And I said, well, how come they couldn't get her to the hospital or call the emergency squad? And he just sort of said, well, they couldn't. And after a few other questions from the other people standing there, he and his father turned around and walked back across the street.
So you said he said that she had a bad reaction.
Mhm.
Who's the he?
Pardon?
Who's the he? Who said that?
Mark said that. His father didn't say anything.
Who was it who responded to your question, couldn't she have gotten to the hospital?
Mark.
And what was Mr. Jensen's demeanor when you posed this question and then he answered?
I think he was very cool. And at the time, after I got home, I thought, well, he was in shock. But then as I thought about it later, I thought, well, maybe not.
Now, did you
Well,
attend Mrs.
maybe
Jensen's
not.
funeral?
Yes, I did.
And
Hey,
do you
Cupid, thank
recall
you for
what day of
that.
the week this was?
It was on a Monday.
Okay. And did you have an opportunity to interact or observe Mr. Jensen at the funeral?
I just said was very sorry that Julie had died, or the usual sort of thing. That was about it.
Okay, and how did Mr. Jensen appear?
To me, he was fine at that moment.
Fine by what? What do you mean by fine?
I just said, he just said, well, thank you. or
Thank you very
something
much,
of that
Cupid.
nature.
We're gonna go with Cupid.
But then I went and sat down.
Thank you,
and
granddaughter.
I could still see him because he was standing in the doorway between the hallway and the funeral room. And he seemed to be greeting.
Nicknames
other
will be
people
handed out
and
then. Rather, code names.
Well, I just thought he would have been much more serious and sad than he was.
Now,
Everybody deals
was
with
the
grief in their own
Monday
way,
following
and
Mrs.
everyone deals with,
Jensen's
you know,
funeral
murdering your
garbage
wife
day
in their
your
own way.
neighborhood?
Yes.
And do you
Just saying.
recall observing anything outside of the Jensen home the Monday?
Yes, there was a large pile of Julie's clothes. and
Patsy, welcome to the
things.
party.
And did you personally observe this?
Yes.
And how did you know that they were Julie's things
W
outside
it
for
is.
the garbage?
May I have some water?
Yes.
W. That works for me. W, that works.
I've poured these all over myself several times, so I know how to do it.
Oh, you'd have to loosen it.
That's
Oh,
what you-
okay.
Well, you have to loosen it.
That's fine.
She's the nicest woman on the planet. Like, even if she gave me what I would assumed were chocolate chip cookies, but they were actually raisin oatmeal, I would still eat them with a smile.
The clothes were all
Even though if
piled on
anyone
the
else were to
very
do that,
end
they
of
would
his
probably get pushed
driveway.
down some steps. I'm just gonna say it.
And
Patsy showing up with that
since
big
Julie was the
contribution.
only
Thank you so
woman
much,
in the
Patsy. You're
house,
amazing.
I suppose
Thank you
I
very
assumed
much.
they were her clothes.
It appeared to be women's clothing?
They were women's clothing.
Okay. I have nothing further.
I'll tell you what I would eat, and I have to the point of
What is that? I'm just
nauseous,
a little unclear.
like
What exactly did you?
violent nauseum from overeating is
There were
this woman's
piles
pumpkin
of
bars
her
right here.
clothing. There were dresses,
Can't
there were
change it.
bags of clothes,
Can't
there were
change it.
shoes, purses.
But there were lots of clothes and bags and purses and shoes
Right,
that were all outside. Yep.
They were all at the very end of her
Touche.
driveway,
Touche.
between the road goes by and the driveway at the end of that.
Mr. Ed was
So,
one of the names
question.
for his
They were
unit.
all, those are all things you saw outside of bags.
Yes,
When you saw Mark Jensen after his wife
Yeah,
passed
Betty.
away, you thought that he might be in shock, right?
yes,
You're aware that different people react.
Pumpkin
differently
bars.
to tragic events, right?
of course.
You know damn well what I'm talking about.
Do you recall Mr. Jensen's father kind of pulling him away from the crowd?
No,
You can understand how somebody in Mark's position, somebody whose wife has just passed away, might not want to answer a whole lot of questions from neighbors.
I can understand that, yes.
The answer is an immediate yes, Cindy. 100% yes.
When you
And
spoke
yes.
with Mrs. Jensen on Monday,
We'll make plans for tomorrow
November
or
30th.
Sunday. We'll do
did she
lunch
tell you
or
that
whatever.
She had called the doctor that day and
Whatever you
made
wanna
an
do.
appointment?
No,
Did she tell you that she was going to see the doctor the following day for
No.
depression?
no, she did not.
Did she ever talk to you about depression?
No,
Did she talk to you about personal things?
no,
So she would never talk to you about an affair she had.
no.
She told everyone else about everything else. I don't know about the affair. I don't know if she was telling people about that, but everybody in this entire case was very busy getting jiggy. Just to be very clear.
Was it the wake you saw Mark Jensen at?
Pardon?
Was it the wake you saw Mark Jensen at as opposed to the funeral? Was it a wake or a funeral that you went
I
to?
went to the funeral.
Okay. And that was Monday?
I believe so.
You don't know how much time Mark Jensen had been spending privately with his family, grieving, right?
Do I know how much time he spent with his family grieving?
Right.
No, of course not.
You don't know whether he had spent a lot of time with his pastor up to that point, right?
No, I do not.
So that's all I have.
Thank you.
All right, so that is State's Exhibits 18, and the state would move that at this time.
18 will be received.
See how short they were?
Are we done with the videos? All right. Let's take our Friday afternoon
We're
break.
done with the
folks.
videos. And you know, Judge is no joke when it comes to his Friday afternoon breaks. He wants to jump into them and enjoy his break time. I guess he's probably got, man, that is a real Rubik's Cube looking skirt that lady's got on right there. It's intense. Yeah. So, yeah, Danielle, she seemed real sweet. Like I would grandma her up real quick. You know what I mean?
What do you wish to say, Mr. Jamboys?
Your Honor, the next witness is going to be Aaron Dillard, and
Ooh,
Do we have a number? of
That's the
prior
jailhouse
convictions
snitch.
that we have agreed to.
I don't know that we agreed to them. I can list them. The thing is, I don't know. I've never tried a case in front of you, Judge, so I don't know what your rule is about
10
counting.
years. We use the federal rule.
10 years?
Yes.
10 years in this case is complicated because Mr. Dillard's testimony that he's sort of locked into was in 2008 and testified. And so there's all the impeachment of him relevant to that timeliness.
So how many convictions did he have when he testified in 2008?
I think the answer at that time was 7 in this country and 5 in Lithuania. And he since has more convictions, and he has pending cases that,
We're not going to get into pending cases because they're not convictions.
well,
If you read the statute,
yeah, we have to because it's part of the current deal that he's facing in terms
that's
of,
a different issue.
yeah, right. We're not going to count those as convictions. I agree. So I think the standard sort of 10 years from today can't apply in this case because of.
Well,
because
let
of
me
the
ask you this. How
circumstances.
many did Judge Schrader say or agree to on the record in 2007?
I believe it was
2008.
I'm sorry,
I believe
2008.
it was 7 plus.
Lithuania, man. Okay.
7 in this country.
So that's how he worded it.
Yeah. And then
Well, Your Honor, I've
also
got,
talked about having 5 separate victims of immigration visa fraud in Lithuania. That's all relevant here. And so I don't know if that counts as 5 or 1. I don't really care. He subsequently and then we should just make sure our math is correct in terms of subsequent convictions.
well, Your Honor, why don't we do this? I've got it written out here. I should say, Carly McNeil had sent them an email with this information on it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jim, but they were talking about the Mr. Dillard's here, and I'm trying to figure out where to put him.
So where did you decide to put him?
He's still outside. He's
Okay.
not in the back.
Okay,
I want the record to be clear on that.
sure. Well, Your Honor, I'll just indicate that.
Sorry,
we
guys,
sent
I was,
this communication
doing a talk
the
to
defense
text.
counsel. And for Aaron Dillard, we listed 1 immigration visa fraud conviction in Lithuania. We don't know what year that was. I guess it was,
I think it was 2000.
could
That's
be.
when he was extradited from the U.S. to Lithuania.
So anyway, he was convicted in Lithuania of immigration visa fraud. Then in La Crosse County 95 CF 1836, he was convicted of misdemeanor issuing worthless check. He was convicted of that offense on March 15th, 1996. Then his next conviction would have been May 20th, 2002. He was convicted of obstructing an officer in Racine County, case number 99 CM 2299. Then in 00 CF 1181, he was convicted on March 27, 2003 of one count of forgery. Then in 01 CM 86, it doesn't say which.
Let's play with some stuff here real quick while they're doing their legal jargon. See if we can make this work better for us here.
County here, but in 01 CM 86, he was convicted on March 27, 2003 of issuing a worthless check. Then, and again, there's no county list here, but on March 27, 2003, he was convicted of felony bail jumping in 02 CF 959. Then in Racine County 02 CF 1286, he was convicted on March 20.
Let's get this sorted. I don't know why it's being
Number
so
13
jumpy.
CF 450. He was convicted July 24, 2014 of one count of burglary. And he was released on extended supervision, and his extended supervision was revoked, and he's presently 9 months into a 15-month term he's serving on that period of revocation. Now he has 3 pending cases. 20 CF 739, where he's charged with 2 counts of fraud against a financial institution. 22 CF 1288, also Waukesha, where he's charged with burglary as a repeater, and 22 CM 1596, where he's charged with resisting or obstructing an officer. Now, with respect to those pending cases, he has an attorney, and his attorney knows that he's here. I don't think he's expecting that Mr. Diller will be asked questions about those pending cases. So the question is, what should be counted? And you're the judge and you make the call. I don't think it's true that he's wedded to his testimony from 2008. I think his testimony from 2008 is prior testimony and it's hearsay, and it only becomes admissible if he's cross-examined on it and it's a prior inconsistent statement. Otherwise, it's hearsay. So I think we should be looking at his testimony here today. And if he testifies truthfully, and if I can refresh his recollection, if need be, by his prior statements, for example, he wrote a letter to his lawyer back in 2007. About this case and about what he wanted. And I also think that it's reasonable to ask him questions about what kind of a benefit he received in 2008, because he did receive a benefit in 2008 when he testified. He was required to testify truthfully, but he was in prison at the time that he made this statement, and he was released from prison by the time he testified. And he was released from prison as part of a plea agreement that we entered into, that we granted him release from prison if he testified truthfully in this particular case. I think he got an early release or something. So he was released from prison. He walked through the front door instead of walking through the back door in cuffs because of
It's just being a real prick right now, isn't it?
because of what he said in 2008. This time around, the offer is simply, he doesn't get an offer. I mean, he's already serving a prison term. He's not getting out of the prison term that he's presently serving. The only thing that the state has indicated is once he's done testifying, if he's testified truthfully, we're going to write a letter to the prosecutor and the defense attorney in his present cases and explain that he testified truthfully. On the other hand, if he testifies untruthfully, we're going to write a letter indicating he testified untruthfully. But neither Ms. O'Neill nor I are going to be asking for any consideration on his behalf. He's required to testify because he's subpoenaed, and he's got to be here, and he's got to testify truthfully.
I think
There we go.
the defense has a right
This
to ask him
should help out a little bit.
if he testifies today that he would get this letter from the prosecution that he testified truthfully to the judge. I mean, I think that is allowable.
I agree with that. That's the only thing that we've offered him.
Yeah.
So then the question is, what about all this other stuff?
Well, here's my thought. If we go to impeachment and he doesn't testify the same way that he did in 2008,
That's beautiful.
I think we should be bringing up the prior number of convictions that he had at that.
Let's try it again.
And again, I'll allow a question as to the
Yeah, it's being
pending cases
a little
if he's
snarky.
getting any consideration. So can we come up with a number after the last, I would call Jensen 1?
So what I'm going to do here, we're going to go ahead and while we're in the midst of things here, I'm going to see if I can't. Well, I'd say what, if for whatever reason the stream shuts down, just come back in. I'm going to try to do a reset on everything here, so it'll stop skipping like that. Because I will do that while they're on break, so we don't miss anything. So yeah, sit tight for me if you would, please. And let's see if we can't make this work for us. All right. So we're still here. Okay. You're here. I'm here. Hopefully that worked. No, we're not done. They're not convening for the day. Not yet. We were just having there were some issues with the screen. So we're going to try to see if we can't get ourselves a better situation here, because it was doing a lot of skipping. So let's try this one. Maybe it'll be better. Odd. Oh, you know why? My bad. Ah, that was my bad. Okay, here we go.
Existed as of 2007, 2008,
Much better.
because his credibility at that time is absolutely relevant right now, because
Yeah.
that's when he drafted this letter to his lawyer. It's when he sat down and
All right. Give me a second here. What I'm going to do with this one actually is I'm going to see. I might have better audio. I mean, not that that's bad, but if we can ever do anything to make it that much better, then we'll take a crack at it. You know. Let's give this one a shot.
for the theft by contractor was to get 0 time. The recommendation for the ES reconfinement was to get the agent
bit
to
better.
change the recommendation from
A little
4.5
bit better,
years
yeah.
to 0 or to time served. And then he had a pending Waukesha obstructing case.
I think it's a little
The
bit better.
deal for that was we'll write a letter telling prosecutor, telling people whether or not you testified truthfully, which is the same offer right now. And as a result, he got a fine only in that Waukesha case. And his knowledge of that, and his knowledge also that that can be the benefit from a letter just detailing his cooperation, is also key to explaining his motive, his understanding, his reasons for lying today. And so all of the impeachment that existed as of 2007, 2008, because his credibility at that time is absolutely relevant right now, because that's when he drafted this letter to his lawyer. It's when he sat down and just explained his whole story to the prosecutors in October of 2007, and it's what he testified to in 2008. And so his credibility to judge that is completely as relevant today as it was then. And that's why this sort of counting rule has to be different right now.
I'll let the state respond, but what is your
So it sounds
suggestion
good. Looks good.
as to what I should say, what is your suggestion that we tell Mr. Dillard before he testifies, because he has to know what he's going to say as to prior convictions?
Sure. And in terms of the number, I mean, the
All
number
right,
is
cool.
one thing. There's going to be a tremendous amount of details in terms of 90608 sub 2 evidence. Okay, just like at the last time. And the state, and I'll answer your question, but the state, even in its opening statement, said, you know, who Aaron Dillard is. He's a liar. He's a con man. Everyone acknowledges he's a liar. He's not an inherently believable witness. He's the opposite, right? So it's all on the table. I suggest, I don't really care about the 1995 lacrosse conviction. And that was probably dated even at the time of 2007. So I think everything after that is fair game. The Lithuania stuff. So I think the answer is 1. If we count Lithuania as 1, even though it's, you know, a little grab bag of massive fraud cases.
You know anything about the Lithuanian legal system?
Well, I know that he got extradited from the U.S. to go to prison there for that.
They used to be part of Russia. They had a jury trial system where you got shot if you got convicted.
Well, Mr. Dillard got convicted, but he didn't get shot.
Let me tell you about old the Iron
1, 2,
Wall.
3, 4, 5, 6,
There's some
7,
things
8,
we can
9,
teach you
10,
about the
11
Red
is
Scare.
what I think the answer should be for how many convictions do you have? And I think everything in terms of the deal he got in 2008 has got to be allowed right now for the reasons I stated.
So you said 11?
I said 11.
And the jury should hear about the deal in 2008, and if there's any deal today, correct?
That's right.
Is that all right? Who wants to respond?
Well, this is going to be my witness, Your Honor, so I'll respond.
Go ahead.
First of all, let's talk about the thing in Lithuania. he went back to Lithuania. He was convicted and then he was released and sent back here again. He didn't serve any more time in Lithuania. I think he got a time served sentence and was sent back to the United States. Maybe the Lithuanians have improved their judicial system by that time over what it was under Russia. But and that was time around 2004, which is 19 years ago. Now, how we count convictions is a separate thing from the discussion of whatever he received for testifying in 2008 and whatever he's being offered to testify this time. We don't need to offer him anything to testify this time. He's subpoenaed and he's here and he's required to testify. He doesn't have any choice in the matter. And so it should stand to reason the prosecutors are going to write a letter. And I don't have any problem with asking him, isn't it true that you've got 3 pending cases in Waukesha County? And the special prosecutor has indicated he's going to write a letter to your defense attorney and to the prosecutor indicating whether or not you testified truthfully in this case. But we made it clear to Mr. Dillard, we are not going to be making any recommendation for leniency or anything like that. So if I have no problem with him being informed of that. In terms of him testifying in 2008, that's really not relevant unless there's something that he testifies about inconsistently here with what he testified about concerning this incident in 2008. He's here to testify. He's got to testify truthfully. And if he testifies in an untruthful manner, he could be charged with perjury. If he chooses to perjure himself, he could be subject to the same sanctions that the other witness would be subject to.
Mr. Dillard, I got some
So,
info for you
in
guys.
terms
On
of
that one.
convictions that should be counted, I would encourage the court to adhere to your normal standard, which is go back 10 years. And if you go back 10 years, you would be counting actually 10 years back would be 2013. So you would actually be counting from 2013. He's only got 1 prior conviction because in 2000, on March 7th, 2000.
Here, I'm gonna quiet these guys down for a second. I'm gonna tell you who Aaron Dillard is actually.
Misappropriation 11 CF 5340. He was convicted on March 2012.
All right, there's going to be talking a lot about Aaron Dillard. So, who Aaron Dillard is? Let me allow me to enlighten you. Let me go ahead and make this over here first, so that I can. I'm just going to share this screen with you, and then I'll pull this back up after a minute. So, they're going to be talking for a minute about Aaron Dillard, but what I want to do is I want to show you guys here. Let me see. Nope, that's not going to work. Entire screen. There we go. All right. So this is that comprehensive breakdown that I did for you guys. So if you're curious about the trial in 2010, this is the one you're going to want to watch. Okay. So just to make sure we don't miss anything, I'm going to have this pulled up in the corner here, and I'll have a little bit of audio.
I agree to that.
There we go.
That's not the problem, though.
All right.
The problem
So,
is,
and making sure they're good here. Okay. So,
for selling his story, what he sold his story for in 2008, what he sold the story for.
they're saying
period.
Aaron Dillard,
That was the benefit that he got.
you know, he had a story to sell,
And the
but
deal he got and his
that's moving
understanding of
past
the
it.
deal
But
now. And
these
his
are
credibility in 2008.
okay. So let's go back over here.
Is
So the
his
first time we met
credibility
Dillard's story makes sense
he
because he told a little. He
veteran said,
told.
Guess what I learned?
I gotta turn this guy down. In my
In
ear.
cases, I'm not suggesting that he.
Okay, so Aaron Dillard
counted his convictions.
was a jailhouse snitch. Okay, so he was in jail with Mark Jensen, and Mark told him some things, and Aaron Dillard was like, "Okay, well, I'll run you guys a deal. I'll tell you everything I know if it helps get you a conviction. I want to be released from prison." And they were like, "Okay, cool." So they're talking about his credibility because he has a bunch of these felony charges, including like 5 in Lithuania. But Dillard had mentioned, as it says here, they say, and this is in the opening statements by prosecution. Okay. Dillard's story makes sense of something that has troubled investigators all these years. The odd position of Julie's face when her body was found. People don't sleep like that. She was put in that position. Somebody put her like this. And they're saying that's what Dillard told them as part of the information. Not, I mean, amongst other things. Dillard said that's some of the things they brought into consideration. So we're going to go down here. Aaron Dillard's letter in relationship to the possibility that Julie may have been smothered. All right. So the defense brings up a large amount of the questions that Dr. Mann is concerned. Suicidal ideation. She has a question about how much she relied on inmate Aaron Dillard's letter in relation with the possibility. Okay, so I felt that Dillard's letter about Mark Jensen's admission of murder was consistent with the evidence found on Julie's body. Okay. Aaron Dillard got his information from papers he read while in jail with Mark. He made up the story about Mark Jensen's admission, hoping it would get him out of jail early, is what the defense was saying. Okay. Now, prosecution goes back and says the information discussed the condition of Julie's declining health over several days and how this information, along with Aaron Dillard's letter about Mark's admission of guilt, helped to determine her opinion that Julie Jensen was giving ethylene glycol and was smothered, right? Aaron Dillard's testimony is true because he knows details that were not listed in any other source. His story explains the whole picture, incorporating witness statements, forensic science, and the timetable. Not because he studied the case, but because Mark told him these things, and he wasn't looking at it from a forensic or a scientific standpoint. He was just telling the story, and they were able to break it down and deduce things based off of that. So basically, they're saying you have to, don't purge, testify truthfully, and we'll get you out of your fraud charges. So, did Mark tell you why he got nervous? Aaron Dillard. Well, she was breathing better, and he didn't think she was going to die. And why did that scare him? Aaron Dillard says because the kids wanted to take her to the hospital, and if she wasn't better by the time they got home, that was where they were going to go. The next morning, Mark dropped the kids off at school and ran a work errand. When he came back home, he panicked because Julie's breathing had improved slightly. So he turned her on her side and sat on midsection on her back and actually pushed on her neck into the pillow, is what he said. That's when she died. Defense asked, Mr. Dillard, while you were in the Kenosha County jail, you saw Mark Jensen as a way to get out of jail, right? Aaron Dillard. Yeah. Defense says, and your plan to use Mark Jensen to get out of jail has worked pretty well, right? He says, yes, it has. Defense says, defense goes on to say, basically they say that they're saying that he admitted he's a con man. And they say, you heard Aaron Dillard is a liar. You cannot believe him beyond a reasonable doubt. Aaron Dillard was then released from jail in exchange for his testimony. And then I have his original testimony, part of it here, a breakdown of kind of his testimony in part right here. So I think they're now going to take a proper break from the court right now is what they're doing. So before they bring him in, they're letting everybody get up and stretch a little bit. So let's take a look at what is happening in, And
now to a dramatic day in the Mark Jensen poisoning trial. Mark Jensen's cellmate testified Jensen admitted he killed his wife.
And Heather Shannon joins us live from Elkhorn with more of the details. Heather?
Courtney, Aaron Dillard says he and Mark Jensen became friends when they were both in custody at the Kenosha County Jail. Dillard says at first, Mark Jensen said he did not kill his wife, but then Dillard says a couple days later, he admitted that he did it. Aaron Dillard was in the same cell as Mark Jensen. He says he
this is
thought
again
the
from the
Jensen case was
original
interesting
trial.
and spent a lot of time talking to Mark about it.
He was telling me that basically his wife was crazy, that she was insane, and that she would self-medicate herself.
Dillard says Jensen maintained his innocence for a couple of days, but eventually told Dillard that he poisoned his wife Julie and suffocated her when the poison didn't kill her.
He said he rolled her over and just sat on her back and pushed on her neck into the pillow.
Pushed what into the pillow?
Her face and neck.
Then did he tell you what happened?
Said she died.
Dillard says Jensen also admitted telling Ed Klug about
Ed
his
Klug.
plan.
He up and said that
And then
he
there was
mouthed
the,
off. He was drunk and mouthed off to Klug.
The defense spent several hours pointing out Dillard.
And Klug, they have in a testimony, and they have some evidence that he'd hired somebody to kidnap Klug or to kill Klug to keep him from testifying in the 2010. And a large reason they were able to that they were able to go for the trial for the murder conviction was because of Klug's testimony. And they were like, why didn't you come forward for 9 years? And he said, well, I was nervous. And also, if he was willing to kill his wife, what would he do to me? And I mean, makes sense. Hey, Witchy, wow, thank you very much for that super sticker. Big contributions, a lot of help, lots of love. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, you're amazing. And so Ed Klug came forward, but he had extensive conversations with Mark Jensen about murdering his wife, about the sites he was going to, about how you could get away with it. I mean, his testimony almost alone is damning, and without the letter that Julie wrote and gave to her neighbor, which is one that they're not using in this case, which is also in this file that I'm pulling off of right now. This video that we're watching, along with all the quotes and everything, are in the file that I put together for you. It's on my Facebook page. You should have the link. You just got to download it from, it's a Dropbox transfer file. You just click on that. You can either view it, but it's from me. So yeah, it's good. Probably say from Gypsy Muse, somewhere in there. But definitely want to get in there. So this is Aaron Dillard. The one that all this controversy is about this Aaron Dillard, who's a jailhouse snitch. But this is part of more of what he's saying here.
There's a long criminal record.
I like this.
And why
Liar, convict, con man, thief. That's just what defense says about him. Liar, con man. And yeah, bless you for your donations. Contributions, Witchy 12. Thank you so much.
the jury shouldn't believe a word he says. Now, as you can see right here, Dillard is no longer an inmate. He's out. He's wearing street clothes. He actually got out of jail after agreeing to testify for this case. The defense says that's another reason you can't believe him. And they say that he only knew about the case because he read about it in the newspaper. Right now, reporting live in Elkhorn, Heather Shannon.
So I know you want to discredit, well, we did that, didn't we? We were doing good. We had, okay, let's check court. Nope, not back in yet. So the jailhouse snitch thing is one of those deals that, they don't really like using them. Prosecution nor defense do, because, the credibility of the witness and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, if they have information, like I said, I know a guy that he was in jail for drug charges, and he mentioned to a cellmate, he was going to get out. It was like a retired. Anyway, long story short, he mentioned to one of his cellmates that he had killed a guy. Right. Well, this guy wrote it all down, took it to the court, and said, "Hey, if you guys get me out, I'll give you this information about this this murder." And what was wild is that it came up that the guy actually was wanted for like 6 or 7 different murders. I can't remember how many, all across the country. And when they went in for the court case, they were filming another case, I believe, and someone caught him on camera while he was going in to be questioned or something along those lines for this testimony that this guy gave about this murder that he had allegedly committed. And someone was watching that in Florida or something crazy. And they brought it up to the police. Police brought it to the FBI. FBI brought him in, and then they hit him with. It's crazy. So yeah, they definitely they can share some information. But he says that. So here, let me. I'll give this to you guys, and it's a full breakdown here, so you know what's going on. But I don't want you to miss anything with court. So let me make sure that they're not back in yet, and no, we're still good there. So, yeah, this is where we were at with this thing. So Dillard, I befriended Mark in jail mid-August because we seem to have some things in common since we both own construction businesses. After discussing Mark's case on and off for 3 days, Mark finally describes how he suffocated Julie because the poison was taking too long. Mark got Julie to go to the doctor and get prescribed for Paxil and lithium. At first, he had tried to spike her drink with a small amount of ethylene glycol, so he gave her juice to drink, and that was when he told me that at that point that it was mixed with antifreeze. Mark then gave her juice mixed with antifreeze, but after taking it, she was bouncing off the ceiling, wired. Mark said they both looked up packs on the internet for possible side effects so he could try to settle her down. She got sick and could not sleep. So the next day, Mark went to the doctor and got some Ambien so he could get her to sleep through the rest of the ordeal. Mark told me I'm lucky she didn't die the first time I poisoned her because I didn't have my defense story sewn up. Plus, I had blabbed to Ed Klug when I was drunk. She just got really sick and threw up on the carpets, and Mark had to get them cleaned. He gave her more antifreeze with juice, and she could not get out of bed. That evening, they were all on the bed with Julie and their kids, wanted Mark to bring their mother to the hospital. Mark said he would do this if she wasn't better by the next day, but the poison didn't work. He said that he really got nervous. He got scared. The prosecution says, did Mark tell you why he got nervous? Dillard says, well, she wasn't breathing better. She was breathing better, and he didn't think she was going to die. The prosecution says, and why did that scare him? Because the kids wanted to take her to the hospital, and if she wasn't better by the time they got home, that was where they were going to go. The next morning, Mark dropped the kids off at the school, ran a work errand. Then when he came back home, he panicked because Julie's breathing had improved slightly. So he turned her on her side and sat on her midsection, on her back, and actually pushed her neck into the pillow, he said. That's when she died. And then, like I said, we read through here what they discredit him by saying, he's a con man, a thief, and, yada, yada, yada. And then Aaron Dillard goes on to say, Mark told me a different story initially. Mark said that Julie, poisoned herself with antifreeze, and she tried to commit suicide, that basically her whole family was crazy, and she followed for the same footsteps. But then it started spilling out after I made a comment about how all of us have some problems in our life. Mark was teary-eyed talking about his kids, and that's when I brought in the point of we all did what we did to get here. And then that's when he came out with and started telling me more about what he did. Mark's demeanor was unemotional. He didn't show any sorrow about his wife being dead. He didn't about her passing away, about any of it. So, and then we get into Kelly LaBonte or LaBonte or however you want to say it. Kelly Jensen, Kelly, whatever. She ends up being a part of the whole process and gets immunity. And they're saying that she didn't have anything to do with, with the murder. But they do have the Judge Schroeder, who was the original judge in this, good old Judge Schroeder. And I'll give you guys this one again because I just love me some Judge Schroeder because it gives you the business.
Pardon me?
That was before the
Don't
princess
get
went.
brazen with me.
Judge Schroeder, but he was the original judge in this case, and he did admonish Kelly Jensen and caution her about perjury and the penalties for perjury because they're saying that Mark had coached her on what to say in the case. So lots of stuff going on, man. Lots of stuff happening. So it's wild. The let's go back over here. I just want to make sure we're not missing anything. No, they're still on break. Okay. Either way, so yeah, Mark he was up to no good. There was plenty that he was doing. And again, this is all available. This entire dossier, if you will, is available in the in Facebook with the on my Facebook page. And there's also a link to a file, a collections that has some other videos in there, original evidence and whatnot. So take a look at that. It'll definitely give you a more comprehensive breakdown of what's going on with the case and kind of give you that aha moments. There's plenty of them. There's little documentaries that have been done, including the documentary moving forward, talking about a case that's coming up is the Murdaugh case. So I definitely recommend everybody watch that. That case is coming up soon. And we have intimate involvement with that case. We'll be in South Carolina for some of that, talking to some of the people who were very involved with that family and with that case. So stay tuned for that. It's definitely going to be one to watch. So they are coming back in, and we're going to jump back into the trial here. And And but again, I will keep you guys all posted on everything happening, all the ins and the outs, so you don't miss anything in the world of crime and murder porn, if you will, as it is with the world today. But hopefully we'll have other things to cover too. It's just tough to get around, you guys. Like, getting from, point A to point B is there's a lot going on. I'll be in Los Angeles next week for about a week and a half. We'll still be running the stream. I won't be as active in the stream, but we'll still have the case going. The community will be here. You guys will be able to chat with each other. And I'll be popping in as best I can.
We're going to start without Carly. It's okay.
Dave says, like the NASCAR brothers. That didn't narrow it down for me, Dave. I'm just going to tell you. Excuse me. So, yeah, the Murdoch. Yeah, not son, no, Murdochs. The bakeries broadcasting on that trial. Emily D. Bakeries. I'm not sure who that is, Kathy. I'll check into it though. But we're going to be down in South Carolina for well, at least in and out for part of that trial, which I'm pretty excited about. That one's crazy too. I mean, you guys, I can actually see about pulling it up for you here, and I'll share it. But we're going to, you guys got to watch this. It's on, I want to say Netflix, but I'm probably wrong. I think it's on HBO Max. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, I think it was a 4-part miniseries on HBO Max.
All right, we're back on the record on Mark D. Jensen, 2002 CF 314.
Yeah, it's called Low Country, the
Mr.
Murdoch
Jamboys
Dynasty.
appears for the state. The defense appears with Mr. Jensen. The next witness for the state is Aaron Dillard. That's number 14 on the witness list. I'd ask Mr. Dillard to stand.
So this is the one right here. It's the
You solemnly swear the testimony is
Low Country is what it's called.
Nothing but the truth, so help you God. All right, the witness raised his hand.
Definitely need to watch that.
Aaron Dillard,
3-part miniseries.
A-R-O-N. Dillard is D-I-L-L-A-R-D.
Pretty crazy.
Try to get as close as you can to that microphone, Mr. Dillard. With that, Mr. Jamboys, you can start.
So, Mr. Dillard, you're wearing prison clothes, is that
But
correct?
yes, HBO Max.
So you're an inmate right now?
Yes, I am.
Oh, he's back in jail?
What kind of a term are you serving right now?
15 months for revocation.
And so you're revoked on a matter and you got 15 months?
That is correct.
And you've served 6 months of that?
Yes, I have.
So you've got 9 months left to serve.
Correct.
And you testified previously in this matter back in 2008, is that correct?
That is correct.
And when you testified that time, you're testifying this time, you're going to be testifying about a conversation that you had with somebody while you were in the county jail. Is that true?
That's correct.
Who was the person that you had the conversation with?
Mark Jensen.
Do you see Mark Jensen anywhere in this courtroom today, and could you point to him?
Yeah, he's sitting over there.
I'd request the record show the witness identified the defendant.
The witness identified Mr. Jensen in open court.
Now, what days, when was it that you were incarcerated at the same location as Mark Jensen?
August 14th through the 17th of 2007.
And where were you incarcerated at that time?
Kenosha County Jail.
And what happened on August 17th?
I was returned back to prison.
Okay, and so you were in prison after this conversation with Mark Jensen.
That is correct.
But by the time that you testified at the trial, at the previous hearing in 2008, you were out of custody. Is that true?
That's correct.
And part of the reason, in fact, the reason you're out of custody is because you'd entered into an agreement with the state. Isn't that true?
That's true.
And the agreement was that if you would come in and testify truthfully about the conversation that you had with Mark Jensen, that you would be released from prison at that point.
That's correct.
And there were some other benefits you also had, that the state would write a letter on your behalf in another case that you had pending in a different county.
Yes.
And the state complied with all of its terms of its agreement.
Yes.
Judge, I'm just going to object to if this is all going to be leading, because so far it has been.
Well, you're going to cross on the area too. So, I mean, it's not a surprise for either side where we're going to go.
Sure, I'm not surprised. I just want it to be Mr. Dillard's answers.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Jim.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Dillard, could you move the microphone a little bit closer because the jury needs to be able to hear what you're saying?
Okay. Is this better?
That is better. Thank you so much. Okay. Now, tell us about how you first met Mark Jensen.
I met Mark Jensen when I first got transferred from prison to Kenosha County Jail for a sentencing hearing.
So, and what date was that?
That was the 14th of August.
And what time of the day was it that you first saw or met Mark Jensen?
Around 6 p.m.
And what happened around 6 p.m.? Where did you see Mark Jensen at 6 p.m.?
In cell block I in Kenosha County Jail.
Describe cell block I. Is there more than one cell in cell block I?
I believe there's 6 cells. And it's about a day room about 12 feet wide by about 20 feet long. And then the cells are lined up along that.
And are these one-person cells or multiple-person cells?
Number 1 and 6 are one-man cells, and then 2, 3, and 4, and 5 are two-man cells.
And was Mr. Jensen a one-man cell or a two-person cell?
From what I remember, he was in a two-person cell.
And do you know who his cellmate was?
No, I don't.
But you were not his cellmate.
No, that's correct.
So what were your first observations of Mr. Jensen when you first saw him at 6 p.m. on August 14th, 2007?
La Bonte.
Well, I mean, the first conversation I had with him was like, you're the popular guy around here, you know? So we were just introducing ourselves. Everybody was getting to know each other. When you come into a pod,
That's
everybody
the
wants
link
to know who you are. And so Mark came out of his cell
to the
and
Low
introduced himself,
Country,
and
the
we started
Murdoch
talking from
dynasty.
there.
And you're the one who told him that he was a popular guy around here?
Yeah, when he came out, I said, you're quite the popular guy around here.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, I had read a newspaper article about him.
Okay, so you know what he was in for?
Yes.
And he'd been charged with the murder of his wife.
Yes.
And so after you'd had that conversation with him, did you talk to him at all anymore that evening?
Yeah, we did. We talked about the Edward Klug transcript and that he had his bond revoked because he came out of the woodworks, and that 9 years later said that he wanted to kill his wife while at a conference.
That Mark Jensen had said that to Ed Klug?
Yeah, that Ed Klug had testified to that he came out of the woodwork and said that.
So when Mark Jensen was talking to you about that, what did he say about that?
He said it was bullshit.
He said that Ed Klug was lying?
Yeah, he said Ed Klug was lying.
And how long did you and he talk about? Did you and Mark Jensen talk about this?
That day we talked probably 2 hours. He had given me the transcripts to read from that testimony of Klug.
He gave you the transcript of Ed Klug's testimony from the forfeiture hearing?
Yes.
And he gave that to you to read?
Yes.
So did you read it?
Yes, I did.
Where was Mr. Jensen while you were reading it?
In the day room.
So was he talking with you while you were reading it, or was he just letting you read it?
I actually took it to my cell and read it, and then came back out when I was done.
How much time did you spend reading it?
A good hour.
And after you read it, you gave it back to Mr. Jensen?
Yes, I did.
And did you and he have another conversation at that time?
Yeah, we did. It was getting pretty close to lockdown, but we had talked about it, and he said, yeah, I told him it was kind of crazy that he come out of the woodworks and said this, and I said he's okay if his secretaries didn't testify to corroborate Edward Klug's testimony saying that he said this to them.
So did you have any further conversation with Mark Jensen that evening?
No, pretty much not.
So that evening, Mark Jensen, when the last conversation you had with him before you went back to your cell to sleep for the evening, what was Mark Jensen's position with respect to what Ed Klug had testified about?
That he was lying.
That dude is terrifying looking, man.
So then, when's the next time that you talked to Mark Jensen?
The next day at around 10 in the morning.
W.
And where did you see Mr. Jensen at 10 in the morning?
In the day room.
And where did you see him in the day room?
I saw him sitting, we were sitting at the tables, and then we ended up going in the back of the day room and sitting by the heater.
Just you and he?
Yeah, just him and I at that time.
And did he have any paperwork with him?
No.
So when you saw him and you sat in the back of the day room at around 10 o'clock in the morning, what did you and he talk about?
We talked about the transcripts from Edward Klug's testimony.
And how long did you sit there talking with him about Ed Klug's testimony?
I'd say a good hour.
And what did Mr. Jensen say to you at that time about Ed Klug's testimony?
He said that Edward Klug was an attention getter and that he was lying and that he was full of shit and things like that.
And how did you respond to that?
I said, well, why would he make it up? And
did Mr. Jensen have an answer for that?
No, he didn't. He just said he did. He was lying.
And so how long did you continue to talk with Mr. Jensen that morning?
We had lunch right after that at 11 o'clock-ish. So then after lunch, we came out and we started talking some more. And we were talking about another inmate named JJ. I don't know his full name, but he was a younger kid that was kind of extorting him and taking money from him.
Okay, so let's back up and talk about lunch. You said you had lunch at 11 o'clock?
Yes.
So it's not like you go out to Burger King or something when you're in jail. What did you do for lunch?
No, they bring lunch to the day room.
Lurch and Mr. Ed.
Where do you eat your lunch?
Right in the day room or in your cell.
And where did you eat your lunch?
In my cell.
And did you see where Mr. Jensen ate his lunch?
I would believe it would be the day room.
But you ate your lunch alone in your cell?
Yeah.
And how long were you in the cell alone for?
I'd say 20 minutes.
And then what happened?
Then I started talking back with Mark again.
Had he finished his lunch by that time?
Yeah, when he finished his lunch, yeah.
So about what time was it that you started talking with Mr. Jensen again?
It's safe to say 11:30.
And how long did you talk after 11:30 with Mr. Jensen?
Well, off and on, we spoke a lot throughout the day. So I would say another 4 hours throughout the day, 5 hours throughout the day.
So that first conversation, the first conversation with you that you had with him after 11:30, where was that? Where were you located when you had that conversation with him?
In the day room.
Where in the day room? Do you remember?
At the tables.
And were there other inmates around?
Yeah.
Were they within hearing distance?
Yes.
So what did you and Mark Jensen talk about at 11:30 onward?
We talked about the Edward Klug transcript. We talked about how he said that Edward Klug he was lying, he was full of shit. We talked about that, like I said, that younger inmate that was there, JJ, that he was kind of bullying him, taking his canteen, making him put money on his books, things like that. And then we started talking about, it was just, we talked about common people we knew.
You talked about people that you both knew?
Yeah, he was in the construction business and I had some construction interests as well.
Okay, so there were some people that you knew together?
Yes.
And so after you started talking about the people that you knew in common from the construction industry, how did the conversation progress after that?
It went into trying to find, he was asking, well, he was giving me his defenses in the trial, how he was going to prove his innocence and things like that.
So can you tell us some things he said to you?
Yeah, he said that he was laughing at your proposal for the Benadryl and the antifreeze being mixed together, and it would take him 4 ounces or 8 ounces of Benadryl and to get that much antifreeze in her. So he said that was crazy that you even brought that up. He said that that you guys lost all the toxicology reports, and that he was going to try to. Well, I told him he should argue that. He should argue the fact that if they lost the toxicology reports, you should ask to be able to test them yourself. And so we talked about that.
That jailhouse counsel, man. I'll tell you what.
He said that there were pictures of antifreeze in the house that you guys had mistakenly not seen, and he was going to use that as a defense. That's pretty much what I remember for the most part.
And when he was telling you about these defenses, were you saying anything in response?
I said they're good ideas. I said, but still said that if it comes to Edward Klug's testimony, you're going to be screwed regardless.
And how did he respond to that?
He was he told them to bring it on. That was kind of his big statement, was for you guys to bring it on.
Those are the words he used, bring it on?
Bring it on.
And so how long did the conversation continue after you'd exchanged these ideas?
Probably for a few hours total, just talking about it all.
Now, at some point, did he start to change his tune with respect to Edward Klug's testimony?
That would be on the 16th.
So still on the 15th, he hadn't changed his story with respect to Ed Klug.
Yeah, he was still in the negative. He was still saying that he was innocent, that it was all bullshit and things like that.
Okay. And that was his position all the way through the 16th?
Yes, all the way through the 15th.
I'm sorry, all the way through the 15th. So, and how long did you talk to him for the rest of the 15th?
Probably until about 8 at night, 9 at night.
Now, on the 15th, did you see any documents that he had with him?
No.
You didn't read anything at all on the 15th? You didn't read anything at all on the 15th?
Yeah, just he brought out the Edward Klug testimony again because he was showing me the parts where he was an attention seeker and showing me parts of the testimony. So he did bring that back out during the day, but as far as anything else, no.
So you did again see Ed Klug's testimony from the forfeiture hearing, but you didn't see anything else?
Correct.
And what time did you stop talking with Mark Jensen on the 15th?
About 8, 9 o'clock at night.
And then you went back to your cell and he went back to his cell?
Yeah, it was lockdown.
So when was the next time that you saw Edward Klug?
On the 16th, about 10 in the morning again.
I'm sorry, I said Edward Klug. I mean, when was the next time you saw Mark Jensen?
Sorry, on the 16th, probably about 10 in the morning again.
And tell us about what happened on the 16th.
On the 16th, we were talking, and he started telling me about how that Julie was jumping up and down on the bed and making all kinds of noise, and he had to show her on the internet about the Paxil side effects. And
okay, and so after he made that statement, what happened next?
Well, we were talking, and he was kind of chuckling about her laughing, or about her jumping up and down on the bed. And then it turned into more like me pushing the whole thing about saying, I think you did it, you know? I questioned him more on that.
Well, what did you actually think he did it? I mean, what caused you to change your tactic and say, I thought you did it?
Well, I thought he did it when he started mentioning about Edward Klug and him saying that he wanted to kill his wife. And then he was talking about his kids wanting to call the ambulance and stuff like that.
Ambulance.
And he didn't call them.
So tell me, when did he first mention the kids wanting him to call an ambulance?
When we were talking about her jumping on the bed and the next day.
So that was on the 16th that he mentioned that the children wanted to call the ambulance?
Yes.
And what time of the day was this
ambulance
that he started making those statements?
This was earlier in the morning, like around 10ish.
Okay, so when you first started talking to him at 10 in the morning on August 16th is when he started mentioning that his children had wanted him to take their mother to the hospital?
Yeah, they were worried about her.
He told you that?
Yeah.
What else did he tell you about the children or about what was going on at that point?
Well, we were talking about the kids quite a bit because he was telling me about how Julie used to keep, she would punish them a lot and things like that. So this is where we started talking about the kids more. And he would say that Julie put one of the kids in one room naked and that he would put the other kid in another room naked and make them stand there. And that when they were on vacation, she would yell at him at the restaurant and make a big scene and things like that. So.
And do you know what his point was in telling this? Did he tell you why he was telling you about this?
I don't know. If you want my opinion was that he was just kind of.
I don't think anyone asked for his opinion.
I would sustain that.
Shut your mouth.
Did you
is what they're saying.
Did you discern any reason for him to be telling you these things about Julie?
No, I didn't understand why he was telling me that way.
But he was bad-mouthing Julie at that
Yes.
point. And so after he'd been bad-mouthing Julie for a while and then telling you that the children were concerned about her and they wanted him to call an ambulance, what happened next then?
Well, at that point, I had told Mark that we all did what we did to get here. And, you know, that if you want to find a way around it, you got to tell the truth. And then he said, well, yeah, we all did do what we did to get here. And he started breaking down. He said, I really screwed up when I told Edward Klug that I wanted to kill my wife.
So he did acknowledge at that point that he told Edward Klug that I wanted to kill my wife.
On the 16th, he did.
And what else did he tell you about that conversation with Edward Klug?
He had told me that he poisoned her or tried to attempt to poison her on that first day when he was in St. Louis with Edward Klug on that trip, and that she had thrown up all over the house and he had to come home and take care of it.
Did he indicate anything about anything else about that incident where he said he tried to poison her and
before he went on that conference? He said, from what I recall, he said that he felt he was bad mouthing him he got drunk, and that he was bad mouthing Julie to Ed, and just he screwed up when he said that he poisoned her when he was on that trip, and he's glad she didn't die then, or else he would have been really screwed.
Okay, he said I didn't hear that last part.
He said he screwed up. He would have been really screwed if she didn't die if she did die when he was on
really
that trip.
Did he say why he'd be really screwed if she
Because he mentioned it to Klug that he wanted to kill his wife.
So after he told you that he had tried to poison her and that he had also disclosed to Ed Klug that he wanted to kill his wife, did he ultimately tell you that he did in fact kill his wife?
Yes.
Tell us about that. Tell me how this conversation went when he was talking to you about this St. Louis, this conference that you'd gone to.
Well, he told me about it, and then we just kept blending into what he had said he did. During that time, there's another inmate, Dion Hardison, and I was trying to get to have him listen to it because I thought he was crazy telling me everything that he was doing. So I tried to get Dion to listen, but he wouldn't talk when Dion was around. So when Dion left, he would continue talking to me. And then he had told me about how he would have her buy all his medications and things like that. So it showed that she was doing it, and he was kind of trying to make it look like she was trying to commit suicide.
What else did he tell you about this? Besides what you've just described, did he tell you anything else about this?
Yes, he told me that he actually they went to the doctor and got her put on Paxil. And that day when they came home, he gave her the Paxil. He gave her Librium and Benadryl and I think St. John's wort. And he said that evening she was feeling loopy and all that. And then he gave her antifreeze, or gave her juice with antifreeze in it.
And did he tell her when he first gave her a juice with antifreeze?
The first night they had Paxil, so whenever that was.
And after he gave her the Paxil and the juice with the antifreeze, what happened next? Did he tell you?
Yeah, that evening she was jumping around on the bed, acting drunk, and then they went to the computer to check the side effects of Paxil.
And did he tell you what happened next then?
Yeah, they basically went back to bed, and he went to the doctor the next day and got her a prescription of Ambien for her.
Did he tell you why he went to get the prescription for Ambien?
Yeah, so she would sleep better through this situation.
Through him poisoning her?
Yes.
Did he tell you what happened after he got the Ambien?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Did he tell you what happened after he got the Ambien?
Yeah, he gave her the Ambien. He gave her more juice with antifreeze in it, and she was sleeping, and then she started throwing up a little bit. And then this is the next day. So that night, the kids were sitting with her watching TV, and they were just kind of having a family thing, and he had the kids with her.
That was that evening?
Yeah.
Did he tell you what happened then after that, after the children had been watching TV with her?
Well, then the night ended, and then it started the next day. He said that she was breathing really raspy in the morning, and that she was breathing bad, and she wasn't moving around at all. And that the kids actually wanted to call the ambulance right then. And he said that he calmed them down and tried to get them to just, if she's not feeling better, when you get home from school, we'll call an ambulance for her.
So that's what he told the children?
Gonna call an ambulance.
And did he tell you what happened then after he told that to the children?
Yeah, he took them to school, and then he had to do something with a client, some check or something like that he had to pick up, and then he went back home, and Julie was breathing better. And at that point, he rolled her over, and then
Did he tell you why he rolled her over?
just to see, if how she would breathe and things like that.
And did he tell you what happened next after that?
Yeah, at that point he had her on her side. Then he rolled her on her stomach, and he was seeing how she was doing then, and she wasn't breathing any. She was breathing the same. She wasn't breathing any worse. So at that point, he felt nervous and figured he had to do something on his own, and he sat on her back and then pressed her face into the pillow.
He just went straight gorilla, man.
So
he looks fucking guilty, man.
at some point,
he's obviously guilty. This is just a matter of
you
loopholing
communicated this
the system.
information to your attorney.
Yes.
And you remember what your attorney's name was?
Gretchen Rosenke.
Now, how
good
did you
old Gretchen
communicate
Rosenke.
to Gretchen Rosenke?
I wrote a letter.
At the time you wrote the letter, was this matter much fresher in your mind at that time?
Yes.
You wrote it right after you'd had this conversation.
Yes.
Now, in the letter that you wrote to your attorney, you were asking her to reach out to the DA to get you a deal on your case, weren't you?
Yes.
So when you were talking to Mark Jensen, at what point was it that you decided you were going to try to use this information to get a deal on your case?
It'd be smart immediately.
Like kind of bringing the kids into it. I felt that was horrible. That really kind of struck me wrong.
So you decided at that point that you were going to try to get him to give you. Now, when he talked about bringing the kids into it, by that time had he confessed to you that he'd murdered Julie or not?
No,
He's putting a target on Mark's back right now.
But it was just the whole thing. Him saying Julie punished him and put him in corners naked and all this. He was talking about the kids and saying that that there was a point when he said that, like when they were laying in bed, he had said that, and it struck me as wrong. So then I started trying to push him for the information at that point.
And the reason you're pushing for the information was so that you could then tell your attorney about it?
Yes.
And then you hoped you'd get a deal on your case?
Yes.
But at the time you wrote the letter, the matter was still very fresh in your mind?
Yes, it was.
No, when he told you that she was on the morning of December 3rd, he was talking about the morning of December 3rd, the morning that she ultimately died. Did he tell you what the position she was in the bed when he first saw her?
She was on her back the first time he saw her.
And did he tell you what he did after seeing that she was on her back?
He rolled her onto her side.
And did he tell you what happened after he rolled her onto her side?
Yeah, her breathing didn't change at all, and then he rolled her over onto her face.
Just sitting on someone's back, you know what I mean? Just looking for a friend in all the wrong places, man.
Let me show it to you.
Does the defense have a copy of what we're talking about?
Yeah.
They do? All right.
Yeah, I've got it.
Documents are marked as State's Exhibit 69. I'm going to ask you to read it to yourself from front to back and let me know when you're finished reading it, okay?
Okay.
I want you to pay particular attention to what's at the bottom, page 5, top page 6.
Okay.
MJ's top lip. I don't know. He's got a.
All right, we got to take a break. We
He's a
got
bird.
an issue with the jury. So.
That look, this one right here, that's a serial killer all day, man. All day. You can't look at someone and just like this. Say nothing. And then that look, I don't care who you are. You definitely have killed somebody. Just saying. I might be wrong, but I'm not. I mean, I often am. According to other people. Wrong, but not if you ask me, because I feel like I'm pretty much on point. So that guy's 63 years old. He was, I think, yeah. So yeah, I think he's something like 63. Anyone in the comments want to throw up his age? But yeah, he's in his early 60s. He's looking pretty healthy for his early 60s. I should hope I look that good in 20 plus years. Jeez. I can't even sit in front of a camera right now without grimacing at my face. But yeah, so they are on break at the moment, having an issue with the jury. Not sure what that is, but born in 1959. Alexa, how old are you if you were born in 1959?
Somebody born in 1950 would be either 72 or 73 years old today.
Alexa, I said 1959. Pay attention.
I don't know that.
Alexa, how old is somebody born in 1959?
Somebody born on January 1st, 1959 would be 64 years old today.
64 years old. Thank you, Alexa. She's so helpful. She really can be. 63. So yeah, 63 years old. I was supposed to have that plugged in over here so I could chit chat with her while we're my mom at one point when I first was exposed to Alexa, I thought her name was Matilda for whatever reason. I couldn't figure it out. At a different time in my life, I was addicted to drugs, and I spent several years very much addicted to drugs. And a lot of things were confusing at the time when I got back into the regular world of societal interactions. Alexa was new to me, and I couldn't figure it out. And it ran everything in the house that I was in, and I was just confused as to how to make it work. Yeah. So anybody that's got their devices open, hey Google, CJTV, or if you would like, Alexa, program CJTV as my favorite.
Record on Mark D. Jensen, 2002 CF 314. The appearances are the same. Mr. Dillard is still on the stand, but
Hey,
the
Siri.
jury is not in the courtroom except for
CJTV
one juror.
Media.
And for the record, who is the juror that is in the courtroom?
Judge, I'm sorry, if I could just, I'd suggest
Just
this
gonna
can
get-
actually be done without Mr. Dillard present. I know that's a huge pain.
No, it's not. Walk him out in the hallway.
We take them in the hallway.
Never mind.
Jury's in the back. They're not going to see
Man,
us.
Siri's always listening. Alexa,
in the
Google. Cortana, I think is the name of the computer one here, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that ever took off, but it's one that's on the computer, right? It's
There, because I don't want you to take any
I
pictures
think.
of the juror.
We're getting reprimanded for taking pics. 63 years old. 63 years young. And still living my best life out in the state penitentiary.
Call Okay, for the record, Mr. Dillard now is outside the courtroom. Sir, what is your name for the record?
My name is Travis Bartz, TravisBartz.
Talk to the court, correct?
That is correct.
And I told the attorney in the conference room, we had Ms. McNeil there and Mr. Perry there, so both sides were represented. And I believe what you told us was that you knew Mr. Dillard, but you knew him from a different name and that he had dated your sister, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So does the state or the defense wish to voir dire this witness at this time?
The juror? Yes, I would like to.
Why don't you sit down so you can use the microphone, Mr. Jamboys?
Thank you, Honor. So, sir, how long ago was that?
So is this one of the jurors has an issue with Aaron Dillard?
It was about, I would say, about 2 years ago.
Okay. And
was her name
how long
Kaiser?
Did he date your sister?
For about, I want to say, a year.
Okay. And what name did he use?
I believe it was Aaron Swanson.
But he went by a different name.
And would that experience affect your ability to consider the credibility to test him in this witness?
This is all hidden.
It's a difficult question.
Such a small community out here.
That's all I can say is his experience with my sister. I do not care for this individual. However, I'm taking his testimony and everything I hear as it is. And my job is to be impartial.
Do you think you could set your personal views about him aside and just consider the testimony based upon what you hear in the courtroom today?
Yes.
What did they say the name was he went by?
Serving, Your Honor.
Mr. Perry, you want to board there?
Just have a second.
It doesn't change his testimony. Wow. Man. Aaron Swanson was the name he went by. Okay. Swanson. That's
You're on the jury, sir. Thank you for that information. I'll make a finding that based on the voir dire, Mr. Jamboys, he can remain. The defense did not wish to voir dire the juror.
That's
Go
wild.
back and,
It's just a small world. That's crazy how they just came back around full circle, guys. For unforeseen reasons.
I agree.
Yeah.
Understand that, sir?
Patty, he's living his
Ask you
best
to
life in
make you go
prison.
back there. Just tell him the judge is the bad guy. He said no. Okay? All right. And then we're going to bring him out, and we got to get Dillard back.
Judge,
That's a good question,
Is
Wendy.
the court reporter still here? All right.
That might have been a slip up there. They just
I can't see
put
with
out
this monitor.
Ooh,
I'm happy to be here.
Wendy. That was a mess up on their part.
Before we,
They just inadvertently leaked one of the jurors' names. I know you're not supposed to have pictures of the jurors or information about them.
I'd ask that before we, obviously we're not breaking right
Good point,
now,
Wendy.
but before we break for the weekend, I'd ask that the court give the jury again that instruction that it gave at the very start of the trial, since we're heading into a weekend, about not watching media, not all of that, just the reminder. And, I don't know if you still have that sheet.
I think I should also give that instruction to the lawyers.
Not to watch the media?
Yes. Come on, it's Friday. You got to laugh. I'll give that instruction. Let's bring him back out.
All rise for the jury.
Yeah, somebody's kicking themselves for that one right now. And they just had him state his name. Yeah. Yeah, Wendy. Well, oops. What are you gonna do? Huh?
Jensen matter 2002 CF 314. The appearances are the same. Mr. Dillard is still on the stand, still under oath. You can continue, Mr. Jamboys.
Mr. Dillard, have you finished reading that letter?
I'm getting through on page 5 right now.
Okay, well, just let me know when you've finished reading the letter, okay?
I've read it.
Okay, thank you. Now, did Mr. Jensen explain to you why he wanted to get the Ambien from the doctor?
Yeah, to help her sleep through the symptoms of the antifreeze.
Now, at the time that you wrote this letter to your attorney, the matters were fresher in your mind than they are today, many years later.
Yes, definitely.
And now that you've read that letter, does that refresh your recollection as to the sequence of events about what he did as he was killing her that day?
Yes.
So she was, first of all, she was sleeping on her back?
Yes.
And then what happened?
Then he rolled her over a little bit on her side.
And did he indicate whether she woke up or not?
No.
And so then what did he do with her face?
That's when he rolled her over again further and rolled her onto her from her side to her face, like on her stomach. And then that's when he pushed her face into the pillow and sat on her back.
And did he tell her did he tell you what happened when he sat on her and with her face pushed into the pillow?
Yeah, she passed away.
Did he indicate to her, did he indicate to you how he intended to use her mental status against her?
Yes, he was going to play that against her, saying her family was nuts, that somebody in her family committed suicide, that they were all on some kind of psychiatric medication, that he was going to use that against her to play that off as she committed suicide herself.
Did he say anything about having some photos or pictures?
Yes, he did.
What
He
did
said
tell you
that was
about
that was part of the thing. He said he cheated, or she cheated on him, and there was some pictures of her giving him oral sex.
There were pictures of her giving who oral sex?
I think it was a colleague of hers, somebody she was cheating on him with.
And did he provide you descriptions?
That's his obsession with
just that
oral and with all these
pictures
dick
of him
pics and
giving
everything.
Somebody else oral sex.
Yeah. I mean, once you guys sees that, you know what I mean? I would imagine it's hard to get that image out of your head of your wife, you know, blowing down some dude. And that's how you find out that they're having an affair. Oof. In your house. Ooh. In your bed. Oh.
Now,
yeah.
After you had obtained this information from Mark Jensen, how soon after you obtained this information did you write this letter to Attorney Gretchen Rosenke?
About a week.
It was about a week later?
About a week later.
So where were you when you wrote this letter?
At Dodge Correctional.
And you were very upfront. You wanted Ms. Rasenke to see what she could do to work out a deal on your behalf.
That's correct.
Now, did you learn about any of the details of this case from any document or anything other than the mouth of Mark Jensen?
No, I did not.
So the only thing you'd seen was the transcript of the testimony of Ed Klug
That is correct.
from the forfeiture hearing.
That is correct.
There we go. He's penis drawing again.
And if you look at it, can you tell me whether you recognize it?
Do you recognize this penis? Was it drawn for you before?
Yes. Yes, I can.
And what is that?
The transcript from Edward Klug's hearing.
When Edward Klug had previously testified?
Oh.
So had you read that before?
Yes, I have.
Did Mark Jensen let you read the whole thing?
Yes.
Aside from that document that was marked as Exhibit 70, was there any other document that Mark Jensen showed you when you were in the Kenosha County Jail with him?
No.
Did you try to go into his cell to look for additional documents?
No.
Is there a rule in the county jail about what inmates going into other inmates' cells?
You're not allowed to enter.
What happens if you do?
You get conduct reports. Possibly put in a hole.
Now, you're sitting here in prison blues. Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
Yes, I have.
How many times?
11.
Now, and you've got 3 cases pending in Waukesha County right now in addition to those 11, right?
That's correct.
You haven't been convicted of those crimes yet.
That's correct.
And when you're done testifying here, you're hoping that this, well, in fact, the prosecutor has promised, I promised I'm going to write a letter to the prosecutor in Waukesha County, indicating that and to your defense attorney, indicating that you've testified in this case, correct?
That is correct.
And I'm going to indicate in the letter that whether you've testified truthfully or untruthfully. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But I specifically told you I was not going to make any recommendation for leniency. Isn't that true?
That's correct.
So you're not expecting any recommendation of leniency from me or from Ms. McNeil?
Correct.
So let's talk about the process of the communication between you and Mr. Jensen. How many hours was it that you'd spoken to Mr. Jensen before he started telling you about committing the crime?
I would say a good 9 hours, 10 hours.
So tell us about that. How was it? What was the what did you see about the transformation in Mark Jensen, where he started out in total denial, and then did he start making piecemeal admissions, or did he just admit it all at once?
He kind of admitted all at once, but it was more like I kept pushing him a little bit, saying, you know, you did it. If you did it, just tell you did it, and then we'll work our way around it. And that's kind of when he started telling. But it was he wanted to talk. He just seemed like he wanted to keep talking.
So some of these prior offenses you've had, they're for things like forgery and for fraud of some sort, correct?
Correct.
You promise people things and you get them to give you money,
Yes,
and then you don't deliver on the promises that you've made.
that's correct.
So you have this kind of skill set that induces people to trust you,
Correct.
and then they give you information or they give you money.
That's correct.
Now, did you apply any particular effort in this regard to try to persuade Mr. Jensen to trust you?
Yes, I did.
What are the kind of things that you did to try to get Mr. Jensen to trust you?
Just talking about his case, giving him ways out, and trying to help him see where he could maybe make a defense out of something, and then tell him, I kind of feel, I told him that I think he did it, and things like that, and then it just brought it out.
So you tried to make it sound like, hey, I'm on your side on this.
Yes.
And you were being friendly to him.
Correct.
And, he'd indicated, or you'd seen that he was being picked on or intimidated by at least one of the other inmates. Is that true?
That's correct.
And right now and back then, you were about the same size.
Correct.
And how big are you?
6'2", 260 something.
So people don't mess with you in the jail.
Not really.
Yeah. And while you were with Mr. Jensen, this guy that had been picking on him was leaving him alone.
Correct.
So it was kind of like you were sort of a protector to him as well.
Yeah, in a way, I suppose.
I mean, you didn't tell him you were expressly going to protect him, but while he was talking with you, nobody was messing with him.
That's correct.
So tell us some of the things you did to gain his trust.
Tried to help him with possible scenarios, like with the tox screen reports that were supposedly lost. I told him to get the information and try to have your attorney test those samples, so that way, if the samples don't exist, you can try to throw that evidence out.
And that was legitimate advice on your part, right? I mean, you thought that was true.
Yeah.
So in some sense, you were trying to help him.
Yeah.
Early on.
Yes.
And at what point was it? At some point, you decided instead of helping him, you were going to try to help yourself.
When I kind of figured out through our conversations that he more than likely did it, and I pushed him into telling the truth.
Now, tell us about the time when you saw a change in him, where he was going to start telling you about this.
Well, I mean, when he was talking about his kids, he was getting a little bit more teary-eyed and a little bit more emotional in things. And when he started showing emotions is when I kind of pushed him a little harder.
And why was that? Why would you start pushing a little harder when you started showing a little bit of emotion?
It was interesting to me to see where it was going to go.
And can you kind of pinpoint the point at which you decided you were going to try to use this information against him to benefit you?
The morning of the 16th. I mean, I had thought about it, but the morning of the 16th is when I came to terms with it.
And what was it about that had happened on the morning of the 16th?
He told me the truth.
He told you the truth. He told you that he murdered his wife.
Yes.
Now, did he tell you anything about the type of Benadryl or the form Benadryl that Julie was taking at the time in the days preceding her death?
Yeah, gel caps.
And did he make any remark about the fact that it was gel caps?
Yeah.
Liquid Benadryl.
Yes, he did.
Did he tell you anything? Well, let me think if I can get it right. Did he tell you anything about the the difference or the importance of gel caps versus liquid Benadryl.
Yes, he did. He said that he laughed at your when you were questioning him. He said that you threw a bottle of gel or liquid caps on the table and said you poisoned Julie with Benadryl and antifreeze, and he was laughing at that fact because he only had gel caps, and there was no way to mix that much antifreeze into the gel cap or the liquid caps.
He told you that I had thrown a bottle of gel caps on the,
or maybe it was either you or the detective were questioning him.
or the
said-
detective.
yeah,
Okay.
and said you used this Benadryl to poison her and mixed it with antifreeze.
And he laughed about that.
Yeah.
And instead of thinking it might have been, he was talking about the detective.
I believe it was the detective. Sorry.
That's okay. During the course of your conversation with him, did he ever mention any other drugs or substances that Julie was ingesting?
Just Librium, St. John's wort, Paxil, Ambien, and I think that's pretty much it. I think that's all he said from what I remember.
Now, he told you at one point,
Hopefully the audio is better now.
he dropped the kids off at school. Did he tell you what he did after he dropped the kids off at school?
Yeah, he had to pick up a check from a client.
Hopefully this is better. So you don't. Is this better for the audio when I'm talking? I don't want to overpower the audio for the courtroom. Just had to turn my pickup down a little bit. So let me know if that sounds all right.
Did he tell you about what happened after he picked up the kids and brought them home?
Yeah, he said that when he went home, because he already knew she was dead, that he made them stay outside the room, and wouldn't let them in, and then said, he had to call the ambulance because she passed away.
Thanks, guys.
Now, you'd indicated he also talked about poisoning her once before.
Yes.
And tell us about, when did he have that conversation with you?
He had that conversation. That was kind of the start of the whole telling of the truth. He told me that he poisoned her on that trip that he went to with work with that trip that Ed Klug happened. And that's when he said he poisoned her on that trip and she had thrown up all over the house. And he said that he was glad that she didn't die on that trip.
Did he tell you why he's glad that she didn't die?
Because he ran his mouth off to Edward Klug.
Did he tell you anything about any antifreeze in the residence?
Yeah, he said that there was 2 things of pool antifreeze in his garage that you guys had missed in your pictures. And he was going to use that as a defense as well.
Mr. Dillard, is everything that you've testified to in this courtroom the truth as you know it to the best of your ability?
Yes, it is.
You swear that's true?
I swear it's true.
Yeah, the Librium is an interesting one. It might have been lithium.
All right.
Because that was in the original trial
Ladies and
case
gentlemen of the
findings.
jury, there's no way we're going to be able to do the cross today. I don't want to start and have the defense then be at the disadvantage that they have to restart, and it just creates a lot of issues. So you get to go home, but before you go home, I just want to remind you, I'm not going to read exactly the instruction, but you have to understand you cannot listen to the radio, watch TV, read any newspapers, go on the internet. There's a lot of media coverage, and obviously that's the right of the media to report cases. We do live in the United States of America. But please don't do that. You've been very good. You've been
Yes,
showing
sir, we
up
do.
on time. I've been giving you a short lunch. I
They're
think
about to
you're
have an
taking
issue,
this
though.
case serious, but please don't do that. So Monday, 8:30. Have a good weekend, folks.
They're about to have an issue though. So the problem they're going to have is that they announced, yeah, it was lithium, Ginny Lynn, is that they announced the name of one of the jurors. They didn't announce the name. The juror announced himself, then spelled his name, which is, it's a deal. It's a big deal. It's, the jurors aren't supposed to be videoed, photographed, or, their name shouldn't be out there. Which means that that juror could be pulled from the case. Now they have alternate jurors, luckily, but that, pay attention. They're probably going to excuse that juror, the gentleman who stood up and spelled his name because his sister dated Aaron Dillard. I was curious, so I reached out to one of our reporters inside the trial, inside the courtroom. And yeah, they definitely validated that it's a big deal that the audio was still on when they announced that juror's name. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we want to make sure that the trial happens appropriately and properly and there's no mistrials. So I went ahead and clipped that video. They do have alternates. So I clipped the video and I sent it into the folks. So hopefully they'll jump on it right away and handle whatever needs to be handled. And they'll be able to do whatever needs to be done to make sure that gets taken care of. Because, like I said, I would hate to see a technicality lead to this going in the direction of a crazy mistrial or something ridiculous, which it definitely shouldn't, because this dude is most definitely guilty. I mean, there's enough evidence, there's enough testimony, there's enough, enough info that would say, yeah, he did it. Yeah, Kathy, the judge may not care. I mean, you're allowed to, I don't think they tell anybody they're not allowed to tell people that they're a juror. They're just not allowed to talk about the case. They're not allowed to do information or research on the case. They're not allowed to do any of that. So I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with it, but let's hope that it gets handled the way it needs to, be handled. So we'll find out more moving into next week. It's going to be a big week. I think we have some other things on the docket. So you want to definitely stay tuned for that. And make sure you set up notifications, and you got to set them up proper, guys. I know it's a pain in the butt, but when you go into YouTube, I'm going to give you guys a quick tutorial here for anyone that's still with us. So you know what you need to do here, because it is more than just a one-click wonder, right? So we're going to go ahead and pull up YouTube here. And like I said, you're going to have to, we'll have to find a, whatever it might be. So let's do this real quick. And 1001 excuses. Veronica gets locked up. I don't know what that means, but okay. So how about 10,000 views, 8 minutes? Okay, so we'll follow this guy. So here, I'm going to show you guys this real fast. and we should be able to do it. And hopefully it'll work the way it needs to work. So if you are in here, right? So let me just go full screen for you guys. So you know what's happening. Let's say you're in YouTube, right? So this is your YouTube, and you want to, let's say, follow this guy, right? This guy does a really good job of doing storm coverage. So if you're interested,
The
you
thing
want to check
that's
him out.
different about a Verbo vacation.
You should definitely check him out. We're gonna skip these ads.
Really warm.
So let's say you want to subscribe, right? So I'm going to subscribe, and now I've hit the subscribe button right here. I'm going to click the subscribe button again, and instead of having it be personalized, I'm going to go to all, right? Boom. So now I'm going to get notifications on all of them instead of it being personalized. What that does is it takes the algorithm out of the process. So you're not having to deal with somebody else telling you that this is what you need to see, this is what you don't need to see. It'll just make it,
significantly starting right now.
It'll make it a direct notification. Now, let's say you're going to Facebook. Okay, we're going to do that real quick. So we're going to go to Facebook, and let's say we want to follow a group here, right? So we're going to go ahead and say we want to follow. Give me a name. Give me a group here. Let's say, I don't know, Chicago. Right? We'll pick a Chicago group, right? Let's say Chicago Bulls. All right. So we want to follow the Chicago Bulls, if that's an actual thing we can do here. Okay, so we're going to click on follow, right? Boom. Now we're following them. And I believe what we also need to do is follow settings. So you click on it again, mind you. Boom. Now we're in the follow settings here. And that's where you need to go ahead and take one more step. We do videos, right? Post, yes. Live videos, definitely. So you click on live videos, and you're going to go to all notifications, not just highlights, because then it'll just give you suggested highlights. All notifications. And we're going to go to videos. Take it off highlights. We're going to go click on all notifications. Super simple. And now you're good to go. You can then, this would be great. Instead of having it on default, you're going to go ahead and put it on favorites. That way you're not going to miss out, because we do things live here. So when I do show up, pop up on something on your screen there, I'm going to be live. So you don't want to lollygag and wait around, because you're going to miss whatever amazing thing we're happen to be covering live. It may be a court case, could be a riot, could be a protest, it could be a panda giving birth. I don't know. I can't give you these answers yet. But there might be a panda in your future. I don't know that for sure either. Last fortune cookie I got didn't have a fortune in it. So I think it might be bad news for me and the panda. So there, now we've got the Bulls are now going to be, being as how my Seattle Sonics don't exist anymore, maybe I will just start following the Chicago Bulls here. But that's how you do it. So real simple process, you guys. And all you have to do is take one more click step, and you're going to be that much closer to making sure you're not going to miss out on any of the amazing content that you can find here on CJTV. With me, your host, CJ. Thank you so much for joining us today and all this week. Make sure to, like I said, set up notifications and share the stream. If you're not able to contribute, stars, super chats, super stickers, and again, thank you everyone that did that today. Share the stream. That helps a lot, and it gets the algorithm kicked in the ass. So we start having more of the viewership that we need to have, especially with trials in the area that you might be in, which are here, South Carolina, be it in DC, Michigan, all the way back over to Florida and Seattle down to California. So stay tuned for that, and I look forward to seeing you all maybe tomorrow, possibly tonight. Set up those notifications, because there's a lot happening that will definitely be worth watching. So stay tuned. Much love. See you soon.